city you burn, I'm gonna build one high.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtrothi, the voice of New Eden, and it is June 25th, YC128. This is the Eve Universe Show. Welcome, 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 guys. Settle on in. How's it going? We're out here at Intaki. I often say, keep on 07, everybody showing up, by the way. Settle on in, settle on in. Make sure to like the stream if you haven't already, or, you know, if at any point you get inspired to, very useful. But so right now we are at Intaki, and you know, I try to get good shots for all of my opening streams, something that is somewhat relevant or whatever. Today, one of the things I was thinking about doing is, if we have extra time, I was going to join Faction Warfare and play around with it a little bit as an objective. But we do want to go over the military campaigns, where we're at, what changes have been made, and all that stuff. But I did want, I just came here to be my opening shot, and that's when I remembered, A, I'm still negative with Edencom, and B, there's this Edencom Gunstar sitting here at the anchorage. And so that's why I was like, oh man, I risked my life for this shot, so make sure to like the stream. But it was kind of a joke, but kind of real. I do have a cloak on my transportation mecha ball. For those of you who do not know, right before Capsuleer Day, they nerfed all of the SSCT ships, including our precious Synesis. So the transportation Synesis is dead. And so, you know, with some work, we decided to create a replacement, which is this mecha ball. So the secret behind the sub 2 second Synesis was that we needed to get the biggest cargo bay that we could with a sub 2 second align time. This setup, if you turn off the micro warp drive, you can see it has a sub 2 second align time, and it has 800 M3 cargo space, which is like half of what the Synesis had, but is still basically the best zippy shuttle, get everything around ship that we've figured out. And so it's my new go-to shuttle. So here I am. It also, by the way, you can carry enough fit to scan, which is kind of useful, plus do like the fishing sites if you feel like it. So it's kind of a fun ship, but and it does have some pretty good defenses. It's got a medium shield extender to help survive smart bombs, which brings me to where I am right now. So like, I was thinking to myself, oh man, with this Gunstar here, it could just wreck me, right? But I'm also like 80 kilometers away, you know, all this sort of stuff. So I've got two things I want to test. Since we're here, since we're live, EVE Online is a game about the practical application of bad ideas. The first thing I want to see is exactly how fast, or if it will vaporize my my mecha ball. I'm hoping I get to take at least a shot or two before exploding. So what we're going to do is I'm going to align to my other bookmark. We're going to decloak. We're going to let it shoot me once and see if I can then warp and survive the process. And then I have another thing I want to test, which is I have my Babaraga here. And so I'm just going to undock my Babaraga and see how well it tanks against this Gunstar as well. It's not a heavy Gunstar. It's just a normal Gunstar. So I shouldn't have to be too worried. I will, just for funsies, though, I'm going to make sure I have Peld set up. How good of a PvE ship is this ship? This particular configuration is not for actual content running. Like, it has no weapon systems or anything. This is just for transporting, you know, getting around in high sec and low sec. Still annoyed that they nerfed both the agility and the cargo. They only needed to nerf one of those. Yes, I agree. It was very lame, especially since the Synesis kind of struggled to have a purpose otherwise. But we're here now, so this is what we're doing. I'm going to switch to this, so that way I have my Peld up, set up correctly. I should be able to see the damage as it comes in. So again, I've got my other bookmark over here. It's over 150 kilometers away. We're going to align to it. We're going to decloak. And then I'm going to hold my radial over it. So that way, as soon as the Gunstar shoots me once, I can warp, hopefully. Hopefully I don't mess this up. Is the Gunstar going to shoot me? It does take a little while. Oh, there it goes. Oh, yeah. No, I could take some shots. I don't even have my resistance thing on. Yeah, that's fine. That's so fine. But now I'm here, though, and I'm 200 kilometers off. Can it still shoot me now? I'm so much less scared now. Is it gonna keep shooting me? I even have the resistance on that. I'm 200 kilometers away, though. That might be too far. I don't know. Oh, nope, it's not too far. And he still hits me pretty good. That's a pretty good shot. All right, we're gonna dock up and see what it takes to get the Babaraga to tank this Gunstar. I was also a little bit concerned about, I'm not shooting the Gunstar, but I didn't know if letting the Gunstar sit there and shoot at me for a while would trigger the response fleet. That's the other concern that I have with the Babaraga. But again, practical application of bad ideas. Might as well do it on stream. I'm interested. Today we are going to be talking. We have a new news to cover, and I do have some. We have some things that we figured out, and also some changes that have been done to military campaigns. So there, if all you've watched is the stuff from last week about military campaigns, this is going to be a very, very important episode for you to watch. Here's my Babaraga. It's worth way too much money. I also don't have my implants in that usually makes me better at repping, so let's just see how well I can tank this Gunstar. It should be just fine, honestly. I'm not bastioning. Shields are nothing. I don't care about shields. I could shoot the Gunstar and get a response fleet and then see how well I tank against that, but that's just going to be causing more problems for me than I want to deal with at the moment. I think I'm going to be fine. Am I negative with Edicom because of trig things back in the day? Yes, I was the CEO of Kybernauts during the Triglavian invasions, so you could say that they have a history with me. Oh, I'm hitting the shield for like this glass dome thing. Yeah, no, my reps are landing just fine. I would need multiple Gunstars to be able to break this tank, and that's without Bastion. With the Bastion on, it'd be even better. All right. Well, I'm satisfied. That was my experiments for the day. Let's go ahead and jump into the main topics. All right. All right. Let's cover first the New Eden news, and then we'll talk about the mechanics of everything. About yeah, we'll do New Eden news, and then we'll do the actual patches and stuff, because I feel like that's, for this particular one, is the correct order. Now, it is worth noting, and I'll probably talk about this during the actual segment, which we're about to start, but I have been shocked at an absence of, you know what, I've been shocked at an absence of New Eden news. We finally have one. You know what? Let's just jump into it. Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and this is your New Eden news for June 25th, YC128. Military campaigns progress as Concord negotiations stall. Negotiations among Concord's inner circle are continuing after almost 3 weeks of sessions. Following the end of the Warpath conflict, the details of Concord's continued role and specifics of the ULI Accord has become a matter of debate between the 4 major factions. Diplomatic meetings have been taking place behind closed doors in the neutral grounds of Ayers Trade Center in Manifest Exordium. There are rumors from those inside the various diplomatic camps that these discussions have spiraled to include the amendment or even repealing of some articles of the ULI Accord. Whatever the truth of the matter may be, it is almost certain that there is no end in sight as the powers of New Eden continue to struggle to find common diplomatic ground. While the debate rages, the four major factions have not been shy to act. Each has called upon Capsuleers to assist in their militaries in ambitious infrastructure projects. As these projects fall under military jurisdiction, they have been dubbed military campaigns. They are believed to be an attempt by the factions to consolidate their power in preparation for future escalations in their respective conflicts. The campaigns have been broken down into smaller objectives that, if completed, will aid in their attempts to achieve their larger goals. The Caldari state has achieved by far the greatest success in this new organized endeavor. The CEP has ordered the Caldari Navy to work with Capsuleers to dismantle the Intaki Syndicate, making way for a new long-range Stargate pair linking Lekanaman with T-TAC LIWS in Syndicate. Enthusiasm for the project has been widespread. 6 objectives have been completed so far, with as many as 7,542 Capsuleers providing their maximum possible contribution to a single objective. This level of dedication has made it possible for them to complete objectives with unmatched speed, completing a single objective in as little as 4 hours. The project has been overseen by Executive General Hikatorigo, whose calls to the Caldari dedication expected, added that, quote, "Our people know the meaning of duty," end quote. The other 3 factions have all had similar success to one another, each achieving 2 objectives so far. The Amarr Empire is using its military might to clear a path for sweeping economic reform. This will include the construction of a deaconry of commerce that will oversee what Empress Caddis I has dubbed the Blessed Exchange. Amarr pilots have shown high levels of dedication, despite having over 1,000 fewer Capsuleers join their cause than in the Minmatar rivals. Despite these incredible efforts, many Amarr pilots have abandoned counterintelligence objectives as they face off against suspected Republic Security Services agents in high-security bulwark systems. Captain Marshal Zerdan Sirkosh has stated that, quote, "We cannot allow Republic forces to continue to corrupt our sacred intelligence," end quote. Meanwhile, the Minmatar Republic aims to restore the Starkmanir tribe to their historic home in the Amarr-controlled system of Arzad. Once the powerful peacemakers of the preoccupation Minmatar, the Starkmanir were all but wiped out by the Amarr. Now the Minmatar hope that Capsuleers can assist them in achieving the impossible, the reclamation of Starkman Prime, aka Arzad II. Project leader Hetman General Kenneth Filmer has called the effort a, quote, "long-awaited reckoning for our people," end quote. The Minmatar progress has been a result of a broad community of Capsuleers. While they show less individual dedication than their Amarr counterparts, they have remained in step so far thanks to their superior numbers. The Gallente Federation faces the most troubled start of any campaign with their Operation Rogue Edge, an ambitious research project envisioned by their new president Alex Moreau. The project aims to support groundbreaking research into rogue drones with the hope of unlocking new technology insights. However, their early objectives were disrupted when Assange's incursion attacked key Federation systems. Eventually, the incursion was defeated, and 2,189 Capsuleers managed to achieve maximum contribution levels, creating a path for the Federation to be on par with the Minmatar and Amarr. Vice Admiral Farina Ravelli celebrated the victory, but added, quote, that "this must be only the beginning. The Caldari are racing ahead, and while we still have a lot of ground to cover, I know that the citizens of our Federation will step up and make the President's bold dream a reality." News in brief. Concord confirms Warpath perpetrator still unidentified. Militia Monday's Warzone Parade destroys hostile Phoenix Navy issue. Mordu Legion patents new ground troops armor prototypes. Black Rise Regional News publishes editorial welcoming Exordium newcomers, inviting them to fight alongside Caldari. Aegis Command redirects Edencom funds to black budget research projects in partnership with Upwell. Federation loyalists Blaster Boys publish unsanctioned scope footage of anti-Caldari efforts. Alliance Sedition loses Metanox and Aikio after 3-hour engagement that saw 850 billion ISK lost. Mass data transfers reported in Zarzak, followed by Deathless Agent deployment inside Fulcrum. Exordium opening celebration hailed as success by Air CEO, with celebrating Titans joining by rare Capsuleer vessels, including Armageddon Imperial issue. And that is it for your New Eden news for today, June 25th, YC128. Now for some analysis. Are you nope. Okay, I was just checking to see if there's any new comments. Okay, so as I said prior to the beginning of this, but if you're watching the edited version of it, welcome. Make sure to like the video. But I've been very annoyed at the absence of New Eden news, scope videos, anything to contextualize what has been going on in with the Cradle of War expansion, the Theater of War military campaign thing, and all this stuff. The fact that it has been basically silent was starting to bother me. However, the thing I keep coming back to is like this reminds me of like solstice and equinox, right? Like I think it was now a couple years ago. Solstice came out. Equinox came out. That was the Equinox suite, the redo of a lot of nullsec stuff. And then shortly thereafter, there was the Vanguard playtest called Solstice, right? And there was a new map for that and all that stuff. And there was this strong hint that there was something going on in Avoiken. They were, the whole idea was in Avoiken. That's where they were developing this technology that would be the Equinox suite. But there was a blip in the security, and the whole idea, it seems, was that the Solstice event was basically the Vanguard raiding that Edencom, or not that Edencom, but that Upwell research stuff for their own purposes, right? But the problem is that like while there was some buildup beforehand, some hints to it, and there is even some moments after the fact where they tried to like retroactively say that is what happened. The point of the matter is that when Solstice did happen, there wasn't anything to be like, and now this is happening. There wasn't like there was the blip, but there wasn't like an announcement about the actual event itself, which was always very weird. But the problem is that we're talking about two different games, two different development teams on their own timelines, trying to make all of this stuff work, right? And then you have your lore and your video guys and all that stuff, which is having to do the stuff for both of them, really. And so, like, on the one hand, it is kind of frustrating that we didn't get that much for the release of Cradle of War. We did get a whole bunch of build up to Cradle of War in the form of the Warpath event and Capsuleer Day. But it was really weird that there wasn't any follow up, except the fact that next month is the Avalon playtest for Vanguard. And I sincerely believe that this is going to be a big moment for lore understanding, etc., within the universe. Avalon, for those of you, okay, so basically to catch people up a little bit, the Deathless is this SOCT guy who ends up rolling with some pirates and is fascinated by Jove technology. And in his exploration with these groups, he manages to find this ancient Jovian structure and system known as the structure is the Fulcrum, and the system is Zarzak. And he and his crew manage to access it, take it over, and he plugs into the Fulcrum, becoming the being that we now know of as the Deathless. Now, there are some questions about what the Fulcrum was designed for, but what it seems to be designed, like it had its own clone system and its own virtual reality construct. The idea of like virtual reality places to keep human minds is a very Jovian thing. It's what led to the sleepers and stuff. And so basically he found this strange facility that seemed to be a place that kind of like a proto sleeper enclave, where there was a virtuality construct and a cloning facility for those bodies. And so he uses that. He makes deals with some people that he, I guess, had contacts with through his pirate networks. In particular, some of the people that were in contact or dealing with the original Dust 514 clones. The most critical person in this story being the Life Giver, which is Gable from Templar 1. We just recently did a walkthrough last episode of Templar 1 through the eyes of like the Men's Repola story. But alongside that is the story of Gable, who's this, medic that ends up kind of defecting from the Caldari towards the Amar, ends up like in close proximity to the very first of the clone soldiers, and then gets scooped up by Mens Repala to take her to a secure facility to do the research on Templar 1, and that's kind of how this idea of like the original clones kind of becomes developed. She appears to have returned as this life giver, who then brings the lost souls, these first generation, especially war clones that have been kind of hiding out ever since the events of Templar 1, and working with the Mortis Legion as the Arcambine group. Arcambine defects and betrays Mortis Legion to join the Deathless, where the Deathless is able to modify the Templars and the other first clone generations, as well as the other war clones, to make them compatible with his new system. So now they can stay in his virtual reality construct and effectively astrally project themselves into these clone bodies so they can go and raid everywhere in the galaxy. And it doesn't really matter how, like, the old war clones were limited by range because they had to transmit to their nearby crew. But because the Fulcrum system keeps the infomorph in the virtuality and just uses FTL communication to kind of control the bodies, it was a much cleaner system for the war clones to participate in. And so they buy into this and they make what's called the Vanguard. But it would seem that the Vanguard are not wholly committed to the Deathless as an entity. And so the last couple of playtests, there's been this development of this alternative virtuality, this alternative solution than just the Fulcrum, their own like mini Fulcrum that they can use to be independent of even the Deathless. And this project culminates in what they call Avalon. Okay. And so the idea in the previous playtest is that Avalon is now established. Other groups like Concord and stuff are incredibly interested in what Avalon is, copying it, making their own systems. But that's kind of where we left ourselves in the last playtest. And now with this playtest, the playtest is Avalon. And so what I think that we're doing, because like this winter, so originally this summer, like this playtest that's about to happen was supposed to tie into the military campaigns. I think that just development is hard, and I suspect that the military campaigns, you know, they did get the feature out in time for the actual expansion, but it's very possible that not everything was fully ready for the Vanguard integration with it. They wanted to do one more test that was kind of separated. So the fall winter playtest is the one that's supposed to be integrated with military campaigns. So this is this is the last of these playtests that is really, really focused exclusively on the whole like Vanguard thing in isolation. Thus, you know, eventually we're heading towards bastions. We're heading towards multiple organizations having their own virtualities, their own vanguards, you know, players having their own independent vanguards, right? Like that's kind of where we're going with all of this eventually. And so one of the steps to there is now the Vanguard need to have independence from the Deathless. And I think that that's kind of what they're doing right now. They're setting the groundwork for that stuff, knowing that it's not going to be this military campaign, but by the next military campaign, it's going to be fully integrated. What's going on in Eve is going to be related to what's going on in Vanguard in a very, very real way. So, all that said, what does this say about what we're reading here? First of all, you know, this is a huge change in the actual world. I also think that to bring this back to what I was really originally talking about, I was concerned about a lack of New Eden news when it came to the Cradle of War expansion. But then I realized that if the real focus is on this Avalon thing, like so much of what's necessary for the story in the next 6 months to year to 2 years is going to be actually more, Avalon is going to be much more important than the release of military campaigns in the long run. And so I think that since there's a month of time between the original, like the release of Cradle of War and the Avalon playtest, I suspect that they were saving a lot of the lore, the news, the stuff, the oomph that they have more for that. And this article, at least to me, seems to confirm that, because this entire article really does read like uh, a a pre piece of the story. Like this will have follow ups in the next month, and then also 6 months, right? So a couple of things. First of all, like, so this warpath conflict, this disruption of ULI's protocols, they do point out that the person who did it is still unidentified. This to me tells me that like who it is that ultimately performed this act of chaos is going to be important. There's a couple of theories. I mean, like, it could very well be the Deathless, although it would be very weird for the Deathless to not take credit for it. This could be the breaking point for why the Vanguard decide to leave the Deathless, because we also see this other note here: mass data transfers reported in Zarzak followed by Deathless agent deployed. It says eyesight. I think it means inside Fulcrum. And taking these two together, I don't know if this is 100% sure, but what I read out of this is that this is the exodus of the Vanguard. You know, that we knew that this was kind of what's happening behind the scenes. This is kind of the big moment, and I wonder whether or not the Deathless agent. I wonder who the Deathless agent is. I wonder if it's Lifegiver or if it's someone else, and what's going on. But it does really feel like whatever happened with Warpath, that unidentified person is likely going to be a critical piece to all of this when we get closer to Avalon. Likewise, Mordu's Legion is now producing their own ground troops and armor prototypes. This, if you've been paying attention to my video yesterday or the other day about Mens Repula, this should immediately raise a red flag. We're going to do, as we get closer and closer to Avalon, I'm going to continue my story about the conspiracy theories around, or the conspiracies around Mens, how that relates to the clone soldiers, and how we get from Templar 1 to Vanguard. So make sure to follow the channel so you can get those updates as we get closer and closer to Vanguard or Avalon. But you know, we do know that part of the new project is whole new levels, whole new setups, and the idea is that Upwell facilities, like ships get shot down or whatever, and then the wreckage or the facilities start to get raided by Vanguard. So there's going to be a lot more like established Upwell facilities, including main control centers that we have to raid. And with better Upwell facilities comes better Mordu's Legion mercenaries. So they're adding in new forces inside of the Avalon playtest. And so these patents are the new prototypes. These are the new soldiers that we will be fighting in Avalon. It also just shows that Mordu and Upwell continue to work very, very hard on their solution. They said was in the story, basically, as the Vanguard begin to raid the facilities, it effectively starts a counter, because while Upwell is being ambushed by Vanguard and Mordu is attempting to stop it, there's a timer on the site. The site eventually finishes and concludes. And what they have suggested is, in the story, that's when effectively Edencom shows up, right? Concord shows up and helps resecure the facility in the area, and that ends that site as a Vanguard encroachment. And so the relationship between Aegis and Edencom, who, by the way, Aegis was originally constructed to go after war clones. Like, Aegis was originally the Vanguard bad guy, or rather the Vanguard counterforce, I should say. But because there was so much bad blood within the player community about Edencom, they had to quickly change it from Edencom to Upwell. But this idea of Aegis and Edencom being associated with this whole thing has been critical, only made more critical when Edencom got a wormhole. And so this idea that like Edencom has been working with Upwell and specifically Mordu's Legion in order to capitalize on the fractured sites, capitalize on new cloning technology, etc., etc. Like, all of this is coming together. And again, I'm hoping that we're going to get a lot more information about this as we get into Avalon. And it's going to be worth, as we go through the series up to it, to go back to all of the information that we've learned in Vanguard so far and kind of pull it out. Because there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, but so little of it has been like published officially that it would be worth like making sure that we've pulled everything together for going forward. That said, I do have a couple of criticisms about this. First of all, I really like this whole idea of who's in front. I'm not a huge fan of that. I do like the fact that they're talking about the number of capsuleers that are contributing to it. 7,000 is a whole bunch of capsuleers, for the record, and it does show just how dedicated the Caldari is. The fact that a project got completed in 4 hours, in my opinion, is not a good sign. That is a bad sign, but we'll talk about that more in the next segment when we talk about the military campaigns as a mechanic and its future. But my big concern is if projects become completed too early, then people will not have an opportunity to participate in them, making them harder to actually get your own objectives and goals taken care of. The other thing that I find kind of galling is this idea that the Gallente are always kind of struggling for various reasons, mostly because they're the ones that are chosen to be against the Caldari. But this idea that it was like there was an Sancha incursion that was impacting the constellation, like a core constellation in the Gallente space. But honestly, a Sancha's incursion in HiSec doesn't do much. What really, really impacted the Gallente was the Garistus incursion, right? Two of the 11 systems that could possibly have the Gallente mining site. Basically, the 2 of the 11, I think it's 11 bulwarks systems were under 100% corruption for the first like half a week to a week of the military campaign, and a third system was behind the other 2 systems. So if you had to go to it, you had to go through 2 other lawless systems in order to get there. That's what made the Gallente be very slow. Like the invasions, the Sancha, I don't think that was as relevant. But you know, whatever, news people can more like he venerates and Jove Tech. I mean, that's a fair assessment. I'd much rather the overall needed. We're going to talk about the mechanics of the requirements and how the stuff happens. Not during that segment. This is about the lore. So this was a player thing, I'm pretty sure. Let's see, anything else? I don't know why. Like all 4 Exordium groups try to invite you to join their empire. I find it very weird that the only one that they highlight here is Caldari. This seems to be so. This entire thing feels so Caldari coded, doesn't it? We have anti-Caldari efforts. We have inviting you to do Caldari. We have a Phoenix Navy issue being highlighted here. It seems interesting. I don't know. Also, Sedition loses a Metanox and Akio. That was a big one. It was a huge fight earlier this week, I think it was. I actually haven't seen this unsanctioned scope footage yet. But I think that about covers this. So yeah, that is it for your New Eden News for today, the 25th of June. Our first New Eden News since the beginning of Cradle of War. Make sure to let me know down below, where do you think this is all going? Am I right on the ball when it comes to this being a preparation for Avalon? Or am I, just like Solstice, going to be stuck holding the bag again with FC, sorry, keeping up with their own lore? We'll have to see. I want to know what you guys think below about the military campaigns and about our different progress, etc., etc. But with all that said, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I have been Ashtarothi. If you're watching live, hang tight. Otherwise, I have been Ashtarothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put even into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you all so much for hanging out, liking, sharing the videos, because that's how we get this out there, and a better player base makes a better EVE Online. So I do want to give a special shout out to my top tier supporters: 745 MPSI, Arydanika the Queen, Bad Boy Smooth, Evo Elite, Erladis, Elange, Flash Gordon, Grims, May, Malak Starfire, Malin, Mercuton, Mayak, Morcar, Michael, Neelam, LM1, Sheesh, Susuro, Thrans, and Rid. Thank you all so much. Where are we going? Edencom stuff. Do you think it's a new ships or Vanguard stuff? I think it's Vanguard stuff. I think everything on here should be just considered Vanguard stuff until proven otherwise. But all that said, I've been Astrothi. Please, if you want to become a supporter, you can do so just by subscribing to the channel, but you can also become a channel member. You can pick up some merch like this Convocation Empyrean mugs. We are recruiting in-game. The Convocation Empyreans are here to maximize player engagement online. You can check us out on the Discord. Also, if you need to, you can get 1 million free skill points for free by using the link down below or in chat. But all that said, I have been Astrothi, the voice of New Eden, and until next time, I'll see you in space. Whee! All right, now then, let's talk about the actual mechanics. Because it's a BlackRoseNoble newspaper. Yes, you realize, but my point was, like, it was a BlackRoseNoble newspaper because they needed it to be pro-Caldari, or at least pro... it's a pro-Caldari statement, and so they used BlackRoseNoble. It wasn't... I don't think that this came from, like, a player action or something like that. So, like, it's just weird that, like, all 4 empires have been putting out posts for players to come and fight alongside them. But the only one that gets highlighted in the New Eden News is the Caldari one. That was... Oh, is it a player one? Is that a player-run newspaper thing? Oh! Well, then I will respond with Galente players are also putting out propaganda to get support, and that's also being ignored. Caldari bias. I don't care if it is player-made. They post on Reddit all the time. Okay, fair enough. I mean, that is fair. But again, the Galente also put out a lot. And Starkmanir has been putting out a lot of propaganda as well. And that didn't get recognized at all. Well, I guess we have Starkmanir tribe. Nope, because that's pre-building lore. So yeah, there's been some pretty big pushes by a lot of groups when it comes to the military campaigns. I find it interesting that the only one that gets called out specifically is the Caldari one. All right. Let's jump into military campaigns. All right, guys. So if all you know about military campaigns is stuff from week 1, then things have changed. And it's very, very important to everyone to pay attention to it, because some of those changes are going to be really, really good for people. And I honestly think that some of these changes are a very big mistake that will ultimately make things worse, because we're learning the wrong lessons from these military campaigns. Now, there is potentially a fix for the problem. I'm not going to come with a problem without a solution, but I do want to bring this up just so that people are aware of what changes have been happening, what they might mean for you, and what they might mean for FC and for us all as we get further and further into this military campaign. Okay. So first of all, let's go back and point out that since we've done military campaigns, since military campaigns have started, there's been several different changes, okay? So we're going to scroll all the way back here. I don't know how far back I need to go. Okay, so here's the Cradle of War expansion is out. And I think it takes a little while. They just do bug fixes for a little bit. Military campaigns. Added a beacon. That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. All right, here we go. Well, yeah, we'll just start here. So on the 19th, I think it was. Is that not? I don't remember how the dating thing here works. But yeah, no, on the 19th, they posted this. We've been closely monitoring how military campaigns have been progressing and processing the feedback you've provided. We have decided to make some adjustments for upcoming objectives. We've changed the values of future objectives to require fewer total participants. This means that we've also redistributed the payouts so that an individual completing their personal contribution will make more ISK. This update will only apply to new objectives revealed over the course of the campaign, starting with those appearing from the 20th of June. Overall, we're really happy with the commitment and engagement we're seeing from Capsuleers and want to ensure that campaigns feel interesting, fair, and rewarding. Since this is a new and fairly dynamic system, we'll continue monitoring feedback to see if there are any adjustments needed going forward. So here's the problem. Problem is that my green screen is not quite working right. Sure, that's better. Anywho, that's actually better. All right. Okay, so here's the thing about these objectives, okay? The problem is that once an objective is complete, you can no longer contribute to it. And this causes all kinds of different problems. The most serious version of it that I saw was this one here. So complete basic courier missions. I saw a lot of people, because there's only 475 missions that were required for the completion of this. I saw a lot of people that even accepted this task, and then they would go and do a distribution mission, and it didn't give them any credit for it. And it didn't explain to them why. And the reason why was because the meta task had already been completed. And so their contribution no longer counted at all. They couldn't complete it. They couldn't make any progress on it. New people couldn't, like, I can't even accept this task. Oh, wait, no, have I done this task? The Caldari task. I haven't done any Caldari tasks. Yeah, okay. Was it a Caldari task? Yeah. Yeah. So remember, you have to complete 3, 10, and 20 objectives for any given empire to give that empire's meta achievements and meta rewards. Now, these rewards were relatively low, especially at the beginning. You would only get 150,000 ISK and 300 LP for that one mission. But the issue is that if you are wanting to get the achievements and the titles for the Caldari, there's only 44 tasks total. You have to complete roughly half of them. So every single task like this that would have been very easy for you to do, but you're now locked out on, you don't have the choice to do that. And so my biggest concern, a lot of people have been looking at this stuff, and they're like, the biggest one that got people's attention is this one right here. Nope, I need to go with complete. So complete advanced combat missions. So this requires 15,000 different missions, but each person can only complete one. And so this has been kind of the source of a lot of the angst and feedback that I've seen about military campaigns. The idea that this would be impossible or, incredibly difficult because it would take 15,000 people to do this task. Two thoughts about that. First of all, we have 100+ days to complete all these. Not anymore. We have 95 days to complete. But the whole point is that this is something we're supposed to work on for the entire time, right? And as I demonstrated with that Caldari one, in my opinion, the problem isn't tasks that are too difficult to complete, that we need too many people to complete, because needing a lot of people to complete is actually good, in my opinion. I think it's actually really good that we would need so many people to do missions here. Sorry, pointing the wrong way. Because that's going to encourage us to encourage other people to go and do it. Like, the whole purpose of having this kind of collective effort is to make it so that we do have to rally as a community in order to knock out certain objectives. If you don't have to do that, then they just complete on their own, and then there isn't any real meaning behind their completion. I think that some of these tasks like it would be really good if we start to see posts on Reddit rallying people to very specific tasks because we need so many people to do these things, right? I don't think that having big asks in the completion requirements is that bad of a thing. But here's the bigger problem. We have assumed up until this point that completion of your task, continuing to do the task over your completion, doesn't help. But here's the thing here, okay? This task requires 15,000 people to do a mission. But wait a minute. 1,200 people have contributed, but we have 2,400 missions completed, which seems to suggest, and if we go to all of the other different tasks, it seems to suggest that people that continue to contribute to the task above their own personal contribution still counts. Otherwise, the number of contributors would match the number of contributions, because each person can only do one. This seems to imply that every single person has done on average 2 missions while still only getting credit for 1. So again, this brings me back to my bigger fear, right? When we start reading these updates, when we start reading these things, they keep saying that they're lowering the maximum requirement and they're increasing individual contributions. And I think that while this idea of like, oh my God, these tasks are so hard, is like a shock to us as a person that's trying to see 3 months worth of effort put out in front of us. I think that the significantly more dangerous thing is if these tasks become too easily to complete, then as we get deeper into this military campaign, there's going to actually be fewer and fewer options. The easy tasks, the ones to knock out, will already be done, and players won't be able to join in and contribute in meaningful ways enough. It makes it so that the real timer for these tasks isn't this 95 days. It is instead however fast they are completing. And so if that's true, increasing contributions, increasing rewards for contributions, and reducing maximum number that's required all contribute to exasperating this problem, not making it better. I do not think it's a good thing that Caldari were able to complete one of their tasks in 4 hours. That means not a lot of people actually got to have credit for it, which sucks. Now, the solution to this, and I don't even know whether or not they can do this, because I don't know technically behind the scenes whether or not it was designed to do this or not. But the real answer is that people should be able to contribute to the task even after the full task has been completed. Like, if I wanted to, I should be able to go to this Caldari one and still go and do my distribution mission, right? It just won't, like, the task is completed. The meta task is completed, but I should be able to do that just so I can get my achievement, I can get my title, I can get my rewards and stuff like that. That, in my opinion, is the only way to solve this. And without that, I think that as we get deeper and deeper into this military campaign, we're going to run into that problem more and more. There's going to at some point, there's going to be a period of time where we're like, oh yeah, the military campaign is going on for the next month, but you literally cannot get the achievement for the Caldari anymore because there just aren't enough tasks left for you to get credit for it if you started right now. And I see that as a significantly bigger problem for the overall success of military campaigns than us being nervous about how many extra contributions it takes, especially when we didn't even understand how the contribution system works, right? We all thought, or at least I thought, that this meant that we had to have 15,000 people do this task. If that's not true, that fundamentally changes our calculus for how to do this. I think this is a bug when you do the task while in fleet. You might say that, but the problem is that every single task follows this pattern. If you do the math for how many contributions there are versus the like how many maximum contributions would fill up the whole thing, you see that there is significantly more contribution than would be considered even if every single person that contributed did the maximum contribution for that task. Every single task I've looked at, you see the same pattern, and it's not even close. Then I killed my last 2 remaining rats by myself and completed the task again, but it wasn't able to complain. Yeah, well, okay. There might be other problems going on too here and there, but like this doesn't look like an edge case bug situation. This just seems like, and I've even had people testing, the people that brought this to my attention, Tonia. Okay. Satonia, then you tell me what's right, what's wrong. So let me just ask this. Let me just ask it this way. We'll just do this real simple. If I go here, nope, I'm so dumb. Hold on. Yeah. Does this task, Satonia, does this task require 15,000 people individually, 15,000 characters individually to do one mission? Or could somebody do more than that one mission and have it count, right? Well, Malak, we can get to that too, but I think, okay, got it. Okay, so never mind. According to Satonia, and this is important because that means that even if what I'm saying is true, it would be a bug. So FC would correct it. So what Satonia is suggesting, which again, I really want to, I need to stress to everybody, Satonia is FC. So we ignore everything I just said. Voice from God is speaking. So let's just real quick jump to the Caldari thing and say, okay, so for the sake of the Caldari one that Malak was just referring to, what this means is, in this case, so 475 people, 475 individual characters accepted this task and completed this task. And then 361 of them have then stopped tracking that task, right? Like this happens to me too. When I complete a task, it's still sitting there, it's still tracking, etc., etc. And then I say, okay, well, accept the rewards, stop tracking. And so this number represents the number of people that haven't done that yet. So they're still counted as an active contributor. Or maybe that's the people that accepted it, but then weren't able to do one because the like the person that I was just referring to earlier, the person that accepted the task, but then it completed, and now it's just sitting there stuck on their account because they haven't, you can't, it's not stuck. You can reject it, but they haven't, right? Is that what is likely what these numbers are from then? That's the people who accepted it, but were not able to complete it as far as I know. We can accept the fact that that's also a big problem, right, Satonia? Like, no, I mean, okay, so that's fair. Taking a step back, again, I will say I do like the idea of these big tasks. I think that the idea of like us being balked at 15,000 people, I mean, we're just gonna have to figure out how to solve it or not complete it, right? You don't have to complete all the tasks. You only have to complete 30 out of the 44. But at some point, I want to see posts on Reddit being like, hey, get your standings for Amar, do your level 3 mission, etc., because we need everybody to do it, right? That's what I want to see. That's it. So, but the point is, we're going to keep going with the patch notes. The point is, even with that being true, like with the Caldari completing as many tasks as they have, I still think that the bigger concern is tasks that are completed too easily, too quickly, by too few people. And I think that the changes that SC have announced are all going to exacerbate that problem, because I think that we all have the wrong, our eyes on the wrong problem. This isn't about tasks not being completed in the next 90 days. Give us a chance to rise up to the challenge. This is a problem of people who come in later in the second half of the military campaign and then discover that they literally, like, all of the easy stuff was already taken and they pretty much can't make progress anymore because they've already been done. That's, in my opinion, the bigger problem. Not even the Caldari have that many contributors, though. I don't mind high numbers, but that's a lot of level 3 missions. It is. And I'm not saying that we're going to succeed. well, all I'm saying is that I appreciate FC's faith in us, right? Let us either rise to the challenge or fail to rise to the challenge. But if all of the tasks were so easy that if we looked at it within the first month and was like, oh yeah, that's just going to happen, then there wouldn't be anything to this. The fact that there are people now that are like, oh my God, there's no way that we're going to do that is what's going to make it so much more meaningful if and when we do complete some of these challenges, right? Since I have Satonia here, though, I do want to complain. Going back to this one, which we've talked about a few times before about the restrictions of this, I am going to complain that not only is it only Navy and pirates, it isn't even all the pirates. There's no because Sancha isn't the enemy empire or enemy pirate of any given group. The Sancha ships are on here. Never mind. Well, then the Sancha is listed on here, but not listed up here. That was my confusion. I read because I was going through the strings. They changed some of the strings, and I was looking at this one, and I noticed that they don't have Sancha on here. The only ones that are not there are SOE ships. You're right. No. And I was going to argue that SOE shouldn't be on here, but at the very least, in that case, we need Sancha listed up here. Don't you agree? At the very least, I'd have waited until the 50-day mark to decide on these balance changes. The problem is that it seems very obvious that I don't know whether or not it's their capabilities or just their desire, but every single change that they've made is for future tasks. So tasks that are currently up, because I think that if they came back down and was like, oh yeah, you're right, 15,000 was too much, and they manually lowered it down to 10,000, I think that all of the accusations that it's scripted would suddenly come into focus, right? I'm already concerned about that when it comes to them, making changes like this anyways. But if they actually change the tasks that already exist, then I think that it would be far more flagrant of an accusation of oh, well, you're just trying to force the issue for them to win. I think yeah, like I said, I don't know if it's a capability thing or if it's just their practice, but it's also true that there are still so many tasks that we haven't seen yet that even if all of these tasks were out of whack, it would still be fine. I think if the Caldari had not had such easily completed tasks in the beginning, we might not be having this discussion. And maybe Ash had said that already. I mean, yeah, there's a weird relationship between who has easy tasks and who has hard tasks. I'm unwilling to wade too deep into that conversation as we are so early in the number. We already see repetitious tasks. I don't know whether or not they're we might not be comparing apples to apples when we look at things right now. It is true that every single time we look at it, it seems like the Caldari have a much easier time of it than other people. But, I have my own bias there for that. There's some internal debate that if SOE is a pirate or not. Same with Mortis Legion. I think Mortis Legion would definitely need to be there. SOE not. And the reason why I think the problem with the initial balancing where different player personas were used for the numbers and the different tasks. I guess because it's the different focuses of the different objectives. And the Caldari Timmy persona were the easiest or earliest tasks. Timmy, the power gamer version. That's man, Satonia. Now I want to. When this is as we get further and further into this, I absolutely want to chat with you guys about your methodologies with this. I still think it's too early to have that deep of a conversation, but now I'm so fascinated with your guys' methodology with all of this. But in the meantime, Rogue's Edge has 2 faction warfare tasks that can be completed together. Yeah, that's why one of the reasons why we're joining Glente. Also, if you're part of the Malro, realize that we're focusing on Glente faction warfare for the next day or two. There is a Malro or a convocation faction warfare fleet later tonight. You can get more information on the Discord. If you could make any lore related task or goal, what would you pick? And give FC an example of what lore folks would enjoy. I would like to see tasks that involve the delivery of large amounts of commodities or otherwise weird lore-related items to specific locations for turn-in. Whether they be previous holiday rewards, I want you have to turn in a whole bunch of guess not 15,000 missions. You now need to go find and turn in 15,000 slaves to the Amar. You need to go turn in, you know what I mean? Like, I think that showing the problem with these tasks from a lore point of view, and I was actually just thinking about this earlier, is the disconnect between what the empires want to do and how their objectives show that that's how they're getting what they want to do, right? I would have expected a lot more of a Mars tasks to be about delivering massive amounts of materials and resources to the Amar trade hub, because that's where they're building stuff out, right? I would have expected like a lot more maybe hacking and exploration focus on the Gallente tasks potentially, because it's all research and develop. Like the different empires' meta objectives are themed around different victory conditions, but I don't know necessarily that the tasks are themed or very clearly themed to the different objectives that they all seem to be doing the same stuff. And so I would have liked to have seen more tasks that reflect the individual natures of what they're trying to do. I would also like to see tasks that ask a lot more questions, right? Like, what if the Gallente have a task to complete SOE missions, right? Like things that might hint towards what they're really up to in a way that the current tasks don't really do. Mainly to try out the Elite 10 sites just for information. Yeah, I know that, but I mean, like, but it is true that now is just a good time to do Gallente faction warfare. So I'm blowing it up to being a more broader call to action. I think that part of it being tasks being easier or harder is supposed to depend on each faction's goal. And yeah, and we probably will be able to see that as things play out more. But I was just asked, like, what would I like to see? And that's just my riffing on that. All right. The other thing, though, let's jump back into, because the big concern that a lot of people have had wasn't just this. So this was on the 19th. So then, we see we are on the 23rd. We see slightly increase the amount of Imperial. Nope, not that one. We are continuing to closely monitor how the military campaigns have been progressing and have decided to make further adjustments for upcoming objectives. In general, the amount that the individual can personally contribute to an objective community progress is being increased, and the rewards are being increased as well. So realize this is basically very close to the same thing that they did here. So now a few days later, they seem to be doubling down on it. So now we have two different times where they're increasing the amount of individual progress and also the rewards being made. But this one, as far as like the progress and the rewards being made, is a much bigger difference. This is the thing. A lot of people were complaining about military campaigns not being very rewarding. And this is the change to that, right? So if we go here and say, we're going to have to go to the one that was already finished. We go to the Caldari and we see capture, defend complexes. Here we see 12 complexes are required. And if you complete all 12 complexes, you get 4.2 million ISK and 12,000 LP, with 350,000 ISK per contribution and 2,000 LP per 2 contributions. So every plex you finish, you get 350,000 ISK. Every 2 plexes you finish, you get 2,000 LP plus your standings boost. This was the original offers. This is what people were complaining about as being too low. So to compare that, let's look at the more recent task, capture and defend complexes. This one came out, we increased almost 20-fold in some cases, increase in the rewards for contribution. Now, note, it did go from 12 to 18. So you do need to do a few more plexes, but like, even if you just look at it from a per contribution point of view, per contribution is 4.8 million ISK, which means per contribution, you get more for a single site with the new task than you got for completing the entire task of the old task. That is how bonkers they have jacked up the rewards. It's actually kind of crazy. Now, admittedly, the faction warfare tasks have bigger rewards than the non-faction warfare tasks, so not all of the high sec tasks are going to be this way. Stone Snake says he's perfectly okay with it. Hey, man, I'm not the one that has to balance the economy. If this is right, then this is right. You know, it is true that the previous, the rewards as it was before were like insultingly low. It actually, in my opinion, discouraged people from participating because, you know, they might be interested in helping out their empire, but then when they saw how little they made for it, they actually just didn't bother with it. So I think that it is good that the rewards got increased, but I just needed to make sure that everybody understood how much they did, because there's a lot of people that have already written off military campaigns, and it is absolutely worth revisiting these things, especially for some of the newer tasks that come up. And so, you know, tomorrow, or sorry, in 3 hours, in 4 hours from this recording, we're going to have another agent mission for the Gallente, and then tomorrow we will have another agent mission for the Gallente. So when we put all these things together, realize that with both the problems that I was talking about and the increased rewards, it is now more important than ever for you to actively be paying attention to the military campaigns to see what tasks are available. Because if you can complete a task, especially the newer tasks, it is absolutely worth it to you. And realize that if you wait too long, because they've made it only easier and easier for these to become fully completed, you might just miss your window, right? You don't want to end up being one of the guys that didn't happen to show up during that 4-hour window that this one thing could have gotten, because everybody else got their prizes and you don't get it now, right? So likewise, in the Amarr, we have now, you know, we have all I'm not going to go over every single task nowadays because there are a lot of them. We'll do like a big breakdown at some point, but we've already talked about enough now. Coming up, tomorrow we have another agent mission for the Amarr and destroying rats in 4 days, almost 4 days, 3.5 days. So it's going to be a big gap there. Hey, Satonia, you want to tell me how many days you think are going to be left in the military campaigns when all 44 tasks are revealed? How big of a window do we have where all of the tasks are known before the deadline? That's my question. So then with the Caldari, we're getting a mining task in 15 hours, 16 hours. We're getting another plexing task in a day and a half, and destroying rats in 2.5 days. For the Gallente, we already talked about that. And then for the Mimitar, we have we have destroying rats in 16 hours. Tomorrow we will complete an agent mission, and then 12 hours later we will get another agent mission, and then in about 5 days we will have a manufacturing task for Mimitar. So today is a really important day, or well, like I've said before, like there's a lot of really good stuff with faction warfare right now to catch up with Mimitar, with Gallente, but realize that like tomorrow you might want to be ready to knock these two things out for the Mimitar if you're interested in them. But we'll have to see what those become once they go live. The manufacturing missions are easy to do, so I do those. Yes, and as a member of the Convocation of Empyreans, we are attempting to get blueprints into position with materials. So if you want to do the manufacturing stuff, let us know. We should be trying to get all of the different BPCs into the correct systems, the war headquarters, so that way you can just show up, do your production, and get your credit. Because the militia... Wait, what? SC tries so hard to get the solos to be social, but the struggle is real because the militia corps are toxic and only care for LP and AWOX each other. I mean, I don't know if I'd necessarily say that. There's definitely... The problem is that it's one of those things that like the louder people often can dominate the conversation. Caldari is definitely the most toxic of the different militias. I'm not saying that any militia is immune to it, but that's part of in my opinion, that's part of the fun and majesty of faction warfare, is that you don't get to choose who your brothers are, right? You gotta learn to work with them. Some of them are useful to you, some of them are friendly to you, some of them are assholes to you, but ultimately you need them to get your objectives done. If I were FC, I would make a Quaith theme race event, or much like those duelist events, and make it a point-to-point race. You know, there literally is a Gallente Grand Prix. There is a race. I don't think it was literally sponsored by Concord, or by Quaith, but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, they could just bring back the Grand Prix again and have it sponsored by Quaith. Caldari is toxic because they had it easy, and the toxic people flowed to them because they had it easy. It's not just that. It's so like the Caldari get the most people because of Jita and because kind of the default, like, if you are in it to make money, you are more likely to be pro Caldari for a lot of different reasons. Just like the culture that they exude, but also their connection to Jita and various other reasons. A lot of people, basically across the board, if someone decides to get into faction warfare to maximize the value that they get out of the system rather than buy into their empires, like, I want to fight on behalf of the empire, but no, I want to get paid by the empire, right? Those people have a tendency to go Caldari more than any of the other empires, which means that the Caldari have the most members, but they are often the least combat experienced, and also the most toxic, because they're not there for the good of their empire. They're there for what they can get from the empire, and they're just trying to maximize that. And so in that world, everybody who comes and gets LP from you is an enemy, not an ally. And so it's one of those things. This happens all the time in video games. And it's one of those things I worry about a lot with Eve, which is like, we talk about, it'd be so much better if this game was more popular, but realize that increased popularity means that, like, a more insular community, a more niche community, has more controls on its population, right? As a thing becomes more popular, you kind of also have to accept people that are more and more out of line with kind of the accepted norm. More people that are there for their own selfish purposes. More people that are there that don't quite get what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. And so, like, it's just like doing faction war or doing missions or mining in faction in Caldari space, right? If you are where everyone is, then you're also more likely to interact with people that are bad actors, that are negative personalities. And it is one of the reasons why I always liked Galmil, because I used to always say that people that are in Galmil in spite of the fact they are disconnected from Jita, and that created a certain buy-in that helped keep Galmil together for 7 or 8 years. And it was only until faction warfare remained stagnant for quite some time, and a lot of the leadership in Galmil started to give up on it ever being worked on again, that, Galmil really collapsed into infighting and, its own problems. And it just never was able to recover from that. I blame Young Pew. Like, I wish that sometimes Calmil and Galmil would one day sit at the same table at FanFest and talk about their fights. That happens all the time. Like, militiamen, that is one of the things about being in the militia, is that we've all been fighting to each other for so long that a lot of us are actually, like, really friendly with each other outside of the conflict of faction warfare, because it's not a sport, but I mean, like, it's a game, right? Like, we both believe in the same thing. We believe in this gameplay of territorial faction warfare. And so, if you can get past your grievances, which, again, we've all been sitting in the same pit for like 15 years now, plus some of us. And so it's like, you kind of get over some of your rivalries a little bit, and it's more, you can get respect growing between groups. But then, of course, there are some people that are just so Diana Kim that it's difficult to get used to. Valente have a lot of those too. A lot of them just straight up insult you in local. Look, I'm not defending Galmil in the modern day. Okay, I used to lead the largest alliance in Galmil back in like 2015. So Galmil is a bit of a mess nowadays. They need coherent leadership, but you have to consider that PvP just naturally draws in the riffraff. Well, yeah, and that's the thing is that like ostensibly faction warfare is about buying into the objectives of your empire. But because it is such a good source of LP and fighting and stuff like that, people are going to engage with it for reasons other than the main buy-in, right? Oh, I don't care about Warzone control. I'm just here to get fights. I don't care about Warzone control. I'm just here to get LP, right? And so that, like, you can't force a player to buy into the whole thing. I've told lots of stories about this as like a leader in faction warfare and stuff, and like how motivations of people and stuff like that before. Yeah, but the old guys, if you put the current militias, they would just hate each other. There's always, anytime that there's fan fest, there's always like a faction warfare panel or whatever where the faction warfare guys get together, and like there is a lot of respect between militiamen in opposing militias for the most part. Now, again, there's some people that definitely take it a little bit too far, and so maybe people are a little bit concerned about that. But like, there's so many people in the other militias that if I met them, I'd be able to shake their hand and be like, yeah, you know, everything. Because again, we both buy into the same thing. We both believe in faction warfare in the same way that like you can hate somebody and fight somebody's alliance in EVE Online all day long. But if you met them in real life, you're not an enemy of them in EVE Online. You have something in common. You both believe that EVE Online is this incredible game. And so you can like relate to each other in that without necessarily your individual positions within the game getting in the way of that, because to everybody else, they don't give a shit about EVE Online. So the two of you can kind of commiserate on the fact that you both love EVE Online and everybody else doesn't. In the same way with faction warfare, with two faction warfare players like meet in FanFest, they both can resonate with each other because they both believe in faction warfare. And to be frank, especially prior to Uprising, the player base loved to shit on faction warfare players. Let me tell you, it was bad. So I think that Uprising really changed the popularity of faction warfare. And with that popularity, and because that popularity also came with increased rewards, the popularity came from people that didn't necessarily buy into the Empire part of it. And so, yeah, it's, I mean, like, that's the thing. If you make it more popular, there's going to be more people making it less nice for you, right? So many people, it's like, oh man, I wish we had more people, but you know, you already have problems with people messing with your sites when you're in the middle of them. If the population of the game goes up, guess what? There's only more people messing with people, you know? We're not trying to ruin the game, just your game. They haven't said that since Darius Johnson, which is like 2 regimes ago. So I don't. It's hard for like I'm not saying that the Imperium aren't a bunch of assholes to non-Imperium members, but like that explicit slogan, "We're not here to ruin the game. We're here to ruin your game," was a Darius Johnson thing. Mentality is still there. Well, they're there to win for sure. They want to make their enemies sad. I'm not saying that, but I think you need to understand a little bit more about how the goons existed prior to the Imperium, but also just prior to like the current existence, like our understanding of EVE Online. Because goons comes from something awful forums, and they go to all kinds of different video games. My first encounter with goons was in World of Warcraft. And so this idea of like, we're not here to ruin the game, we're here to ruin your game, doesn't just come from EVE Online. It's because like the thing is that they all communicated with each other on the Something Awful forums, and so then they would get into a new game, and they would all talk to each other about it, and so they would understand the game's mechanics on a level that your average player just didn't, and so they were able to exploit anything, any bug in the system, any weird mountainside that you could clip against, any strategy that was out there and required coordination, but was highly effective, like they were extremely good at that. And they would exploit, all kinds of things in games, with the argument being that by capitalizing on these exploits, they are forcing the game developers to fix them, that they are making the game better by making these issues of the game so impactful that the developers have to deal with it. And so that philosophy of like, no, 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 we're here to make the game better. The things that we're doing that are bad in the game exposes the flaws of the game, not the flaws in us, was kind of the idea that they came into EVE Online with. But then they got their ass kicked by Bob, and they couldn't, their ideas, their all of their strategies, all of their understandings, all of their numbers were not sufficient to do so. And so this animosity grows, and they, rather than being beaten back, they double down and rally. They take on this significant challenge, and you can read the Empires of Eve books to figure out where it goes from there. But like, that's why this idea of like, they in their own internal headcanon feel like they are making the game better. But part of making the game better means making your game worse, because especially with nullsec, it very much is about, you don't win by killing your opponent. You don't win by defeating your opponent. You only win when you can force your opponent to give up. So you don't win by beating them. You win by making sure that they're having no fun. The best example, or the best analogy I ever heard, was like, nullsec is a competition where both sides chew on gravel as hard as they can and pretend like they enjoy it, to show that they can chew gravel better than their opponent can, hopefully forcing their opponent to quit because they don't want to chew gravel nearly as much as they want to chew gravel. And that really is, in my opinion, a big piece of what like makes nullsec, which is why I stick with faction warfare instead of nullsec. Null stagnation does feel real. We need a new war. They need reasons to fight for something real. They need to give reasons. Nullsec does not get reasons to fight from CCP or for FC, right? You want a war? Care about something. This whole idea of like already replaced, or the idea of like any given region doesn't matter, that is the poison that is causing your stagnation. Give a shit about something. Say that you're going to do something that other people could stop, and then fight anybody who tries to stop you. That's how you make it meaningful. That's how you make it big. For years, nullsec complained that CCP was like meddling in their stuff, and it should all be about the players. This is player empire stuff. It's player stories. CCP is just janitors. They should get out of the way. They didn't want rats camping on gates. They didn't want weird news sites that require things. They didn't want NPCs attacking things. They don't want changes. They want it to only be about player stuff. And so it's like, all right, well, here's all the tools that you need to build empires. And nullsec turtled and stagnated. Like, the original rivalries in nullsec happened because people gave a shit. Like, the Alliance named themselves Stain Alliance. If you occupy Stain and then name yourself the Stain Alliance, and then when somebody comes and fights you, you can't just be like, I guess we'll just move somewhere else now. You're Stain Alliance. You either get to defend your space or become eradicated. And that level of buying in to the game is what made those wars so meaningful. So if nullsec is stagnated, it's because your leadership is failing to give you justifications. Do not sit around and wait for FC to give you reasons to fight. Given you plenty of reasons to fight. They've given you plenty of tools. They've given you plenty of stuff to do. In the end, if you want this to be a game that is a sandbox, you're going to have to be willing to make your own castles and care about them. Report button? Let's break the game until we... Oh, So to go back to it, I mean, look, I'm not defending goons at all. I'm just saying like that's the philosophy that they kind of came from. But in a lot of cases, they do report like, and again, the modern goon swarm is much more buttoned up than old school goons. But they would have said that they do report. But the problem is that a bug that doesn't cause any problems sits on a backlog, right? So their argument is that by openly exposing the bug in things like Altered Valley and World of Warcraft, for example, they are forcing the developers to actually address it. Otherwise, they'll just let the bug continue to exist, right? So yeah, I guess a good example of this Eve-wise was like, so there is a bug that I know exists, in which, actually, I don't know if it's been fixed yet, but there was for a long time at least, and probably now is, a bug where, so in the Abyss, you have the 3 rooms, and the 3 rooms are attached by gates. It used to be that like you could time out, you could get to the gate, jump through, and then time out, and it would kill you, even though you've already basically made it out of the whole thing. And so in order to fix that, they added a thing where you're actually invulnerable during the jumping process. But that actually introduced a new bug or new issue, which is like if you're running low on time, if you jump from room 2 to room 3, or technically from if you jump from one room to the next, right as the timer is expiring, so that way, you are in the jump tunnel as the timer expires, then you will not die, and the timer will go away, and so you now have all the time in the world in order to keep the achievement or the Abyss. So this problem came up in like 2018, 2019. And I remember talking to CCP about it at the time and being like, yeah, this is a thing that can happen. And I remember the dev sat there and thought about it for a second there and was like, I don't think that's going to be that big of a problem. And so like the problem is that yes, that bug exists. The issue is that how much dev effort, how much other things might have to get accidentally broken in order to fix that particular problem, right? Compare that to the number of people, the amount that actual problem impacts the game at all, right? This is why I don't like to bring up this bug very much. But like, so arguably, if we saw this rise in people sharing this strategy around and it becoming more and more common that people are doing this, then it would become a real problem, which would force FC to actually fix it. As it is right now, it is a bug that exists, but isn't really a problem that demands actual attention. And so the old school goons would have been flaunting that this exists, making video guides on how to do it, sharing it around within their people, calling people idiots, anybody who dies to timer, etc., as a way of drawing attention towards this bug, as a way of forcing FC to fix the problem. Again, this is I'm using this is an example of kind of what I'm talking about. Don't actually do this, guys. I think actually it has been fixed. Yeah, that bug can't hurt anyone. It just helps a little bit in rare situations. Thank you, Satonia. Okay, never mind. It's been declared an exploit. Thank you, Satonia. I was thinking, I knew that there was an issue, like it got resolved. I don't remember when it was declared an exploit, but it was several years later. Because I remember, like I said, I remember having that conversation with FC about it, and ultimately, just declaring it an exploit is the correct way to fix it instead of trying to put in dev effort in order to fix it. But that was my point: was that like for years that existed. And it wasn't until it actually became a problem that FC had to do anything about it. And so from Goonswarm's point of view, or from rather the Goons' point of view from back in the day, they would have made a big deal about it, forcing FC to declare an exploit. Hey, Val, thank you for that clarification. I was getting increasingly nervous about even mentioning the thing because I was pretty sure it got fixed. Declaring it as an exploit is the equivalent of it. But that's an example of what I'm talking about. Either way, what else are we talking about today? Is there anything else to talk about today? Oh, there is one other thing that I wanted to show off today before anything else. I do want to do some maybe faction warfare for you guys if you guys want. Player narrative is what drives this game. The issue is that it's too hard to start a narrative without someone coming along and farming your group for kills when they have no narrative reason. This is a game about struggling against adversity. If you let those sorts of things scare you, then you get defeated. There are plenty of people that go and find their niche and then find their story and then blah, 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 one step at a time. And yeah, somebody's going to come over and kick you in the face really fucking hard at some point. That's going to be part of your journey. Better be ready for it, because adversary, here's the thing, your group isn't united until that happens. You can have your group and you can have your prosperity and you can have your inviting people to come do your null site until you get attacked. That's what makes bands of brothers. That is the friendship machine. Classic accelerationalism. Yes, basically. Well, Stain Empire lives in NPSI and probably hasn't been in a war since like 2013. I meant first of all, I meant Curse Alliance, but second of all, my point is that the earliest alliances in EVE Online were largely based on territory. And because they were based on territory, they cared about territory. Let me tell you another story that actually relates to faction warfare and all this stuff, okay? So, Aderon Robotics, we were doing Aderon Robotics stuff. At the time, one. I can even show off the map. It was great. All right. So, throughout all of the Gallente Caldari war, the war zone is divided into the north and the south. Okay, the south is more Gallente focused because it's where all the Gallente Highsec is, and then the north is more Caldari focused because the Caldari Highsec. Now this map is obviously a little bit abstracted, so it's not quite 100%, but this is like roughly just how we always used to talk about the war zone and think. So one of the critical systems in the entirety of faction warfare is this system right here, Nenemelia. Okay, and for a long time, it was the capital of the Gal Mill efforts. Right, it was deep. It was basically at the northern border, so we could project up from there. But it's where like a lot of the militia guys hung out back in the day. It also is highly connected. You can see all these like connections to it. That's what made it such an interesting point. It was this like major crossroads in the center of the war zone. But that's where like a lot of the big people like Valor Accords, Cowboy Bebop, and all them hung out. Aderon Robotics, we didn't want to like live on everybody else's couches, because even then, like there were a bunch of assholes that like fought over like plex rights and stuff in this area. It was weird. So we wanted to have our own identity. And we also were more newbie focused. So we wanted to defend the south of the war zone. Because it was easier for us to supply it. It was easier to get people into it, and we figured that people needed to care about it too. Now, this was before Frontlines, so any system was in play at all times. It didn't actually matter adjacency or whatever. So we focused mostly on the southern half of the world. Yeah, CBA is actually a really great example. So in order for us to focus on the war zone, or the southern war zone, we focus on this system of Hades. Hades is basically the southern equivalent of Nenemelia. You can see that it is part of this major crossroads of systems, and it's this big control point, right? It also has a lot of stations and stuff, and it's 2 jumps from Highsec through Old Man Star. Now, we held Hades for some time, but when the state came and attacked here, we asked the North for help, and the North's response was just simply to say that Hades doesn't matter, just let it fall and come live in Nenemelia. Now, this happened a couple times. We actually defended Hades. We brought it all the way from vulnerable to stable. It was such a cool event that we ended up giving out awards for it. Where is it? Operation Firefly. I called it Operation Firefly because the idea was is that you can't take the sky from me. The rest of the militias, the rest of Galmil said that we couldn't secure Hades. So then we took it all the way from vulnerable to stable, and then offered everybody that the people that participated in it this medal. Like, yeah, good job. But eventually, unfortunately, with ongoing pressure, eventually Hades fell, and we fled to the system of Yvonne, right? So we started setting up in Yvonne because it was directly next to Hades. But here's the problem with Yvonne. Yvonne is not in the war zone. It doesn't require any ownership. No one can take it from us. And so it was a great place to retreat to kind of resupply and like reestablish ourselves. But the problem is that our activity instantly cut down to a third. We lost 2/3 of our activity basically overnight. Still trying to put out fleets, still trying to do stuff. Less people were showing up. Significantly less people were showing up. Significantly less leaders were putting out fleets. All motivation was fried because we had no skin in the game. Okay? So that's why we were holding a meeting in the Aideron Robotics, the Aideron Robotics guys. We were all holding a meeting. It was Marcel. I was the COO at the time. Marcel was leading it. We were all talking about what we want to do. We couldn't decide. Like, taking back Hades on our own didn't really seem viable. Nobody really wanted to move up to. We didn't want to like sheepishly come up into Nenemelia because we wanted our own identity. That was important to us. And as we were talking, I jumped into a system that at the time didn't really matter to anybody. Because the thing is that this pipe that goes all the way from Old Man Star up through into Nenemelia, this pipe, this direction here in the lines, this is the pipe that mattered. This extra pipe didn't matter nearly as much because over here was Snuff and other pirate lords and stuff in Tama, and that's spooky. So less people travel this way than this way at the time. And so there was this little system that was adjacent. There was these two systems adjacent to Hades that basically nobody really cared about. But a couple of our guys that did plexing liked to do plexing in these systems because of how quiet they were. And so I jumped into Fleet during this meeting, and I was like, I saw that we still owned it, and I was like, hey, what if we take Fleet? And then we reorganized, put ourselves into Fleet, moved stuff in, and instantly Aideron jumped back up in membership and participation. We had something to do. We had something to care about. And then when a little while later, a couple years later, the entire war zone was being burned because when Ascension happened, so we have all the alpha clones. Galmil scoffed at alpha clones, and we had already started our civil war because Ardra decided to side with Snuff, and so there was all this internal conflict within the Gallente. So then the Caldari start taking all these systems, and so there's this big meeting of all of the Gallente leadership, and I'm in the meeting, and it basically the main leaders of the different major alliances and corporations within the militia had come to the decision that we're just going to extract out of the war zone, that we're just going to let Calmil burn the whole thing down and then regain a foothold and fight them back. Because the idea would be that the act of burning the entire war zone is going to exhaust them. And so they're all excited right now. Let them have their excitement. And then when they are burned out, we'll come in and push them back. And that was their plan. But I remembered what happened when we went to Yvonne. And so I said, they can take Fleet when they take it from me. And I left the meeting. And we proceeded to prepare to defend Fleet. And it was at that point that Silver and oh no, I'm going to not remember people's names, and that's going to be bad. Hold on. Mecha Enterprise fleets. Ah, there we go. Yeah. This group. Whoa, Mecha was founded by Frozen Fallout? Yeah, X-Meta, that was their name. Okay, I just learned something new. Any rate, so Silver and Contra, that was his name, came to me and was like, hey, we want to fight with you. And so they came and moved to Fleet, and we successfully defended Fleet. And from that union was Fed Up, which became at the time the most powerful Gallente alliance in the Federation. And I even have my Aderon Robotics. You guys want to see my Aderon Robotics advertisement? I made a video back in the day advertising for Aderon Robotics. I really do hate that Tama's almost... Yeah? Okay. Oh, there's something else I want to show you guys, and I keep on forgetting to do it, but I'll do that afterwards. Hold on. Get the ad out of the way. Okay, so I made this originally for the Federation Day propaganda contest, but this is kind of the story of Aderon Robotics. Where freedom, law, and justice is denied, war is inevitable. Nearly a millennium and a half ago, the Gorun Empire collapsed, bringing chaos to the planet of Gallente Prime. However, from this struggle came the birth of freedom to the New Eden cluster. It was this precious seed of freedom that first made contact with their younger sisters on their neighboring planet of Caldari. The planet of Caldari Prime was cold, and only recently habitable thanks to the completion of an ancient terraforming project. But with the aid of the Gallente people, they were able to survive and thrive, and together they took to the stars, and together they built the first Stargate from their mutual cradle of Luminaire. Soon after came contact with the Intaki and the Manar, and so many others. So many lost and wayward children barely surviving on their own. But together, freedom grew. But the Caldari refused to contribute to the shared burden that freedom brings to those who wish to maintain it. The gall of the corporate overlords have driven their people to deception, rebellion, and terrorism. Where freedom, law, and justice is denied, war is inevitable. On February 21st, YC111, Marcel Devereaux, AI genius and cluster-renowned engineer of Capsuleer Tools, was born for the second time. His dream of a robotics and technology manufacturing powerhouse was soon realized in Aderon Robotics, named after his home constellation. But peace was not for Aderon Robotics, not so long as freedom is in peril. Marcel was a fierce loyalist to the Gallente people, and in YC114, when the Militia War Powers Act of YC110 was restructured, the once industrial powerhouse of Aderon Robotics transformed itself into the defenders of the innocent and killers of those who would persecute them. When the Northern Militia deemed Hades too hard to hold, Ader held. When the Caldari Uprising of YC118 caused the majority of the Gallente powers to give up their territory, Ader refused to give up the South, and from their base in Fleet, the South held. Inspired by Aderon's stalwart defense, Mecha Enterprises' fleet joined up and Federation Uprising was born. From Intaki to Valor, the South was free, thanks to Fed Up and Aderon Robotics. Only after Ader was asked by Fed Up to leave the war zone was the Caldari allowed to take Fleet, if only for a moment. Enraged by this, Aderon left Fed Up and rejoined the war zone, retook Fleet, and again it stands as a bastion of freedom in an otherwise conflicted war zone. Now the Gallente militia is in shambles. Valor Accords, previously seen as the last bastion of Gallente support in the war zone, has moved to Minmatar militia, abandoning the Caldari and Gallente war zone. The fighting is hard. Organized pirate lords roam the area, and new threats rise within the state. And now an army of Amarian drones have descended upon our territories, threatening everywhere not being actively patrolled, and bringing the threat to our very doorsteps.
but we will hold. Aderon Robotics needs you. The Federation needs you. Freedom and democracy itself needs you to join us in continuing our journey. When they said it couldn't be done, we did. When they said it wasn't worth it, we proved them wrong. Defend freedom. Defend democracy. Join the growing legacy of Aderon Robotics.
There you go. All right, so yeah, that was 5 years ago. Okay, but hold on. So I don't know how to pronounce Christian Neo, I think. It's a very interesting statement. I want to jump into this topic a little. So we have player narrative is what drives the game. The issue is it's too hard to start a narrative without someone coming along and farming your group for kills when they have no real narrative reason. 100 storyline is more dynamic than 5. And then he says, I've got one corp going up to like 30 people before getting farmed into oblivion by high-sec gank. Playing since 2004, never been able to get anywhere, still never flown a cap, and still feels impossible to start anything from the ground up. I definitely appreciate the frustration. I love this game. I just want to see it return to the glory days of player narrative. Hold on. That last line I disagree with a lot more, because I think that you absolutely, like, player narrative is absolutely part of it, but just realize that, like, if you want to do something, there's going to be somebody who wants to stop you just for the sake of doing so, because impacting other people for good and for bad is like a big piece of all of this. So it sounds to me like, so you have a corporation with 30 people, and it continues to just get farmed by high-sec gankers, but you don't have a cap. So the thing is that, like, well, what are you guys building towards? How is being ganked in high-sec causing you a problem? Because, like, ganking is a series of mechanics that can be dealt with by choices, and certainly, like, cooperation can very much mitigate the problem. So if someone is actively attempting to disrupt your guys' stuff, my question is, what are you guys doing to prevent that disruption? The real secret here, the real secret to this whole, like, having an objective thing is realize that you're playing a different game than other people are. This happens all the time when I'm in plexes and fighting, right? Because, like, I'll have pirates come by, and maybe I'll just, like, as soon as they come into this plex, I'll run away. And they'll be like, "Nah, you're such a nerd," or whatever. But here's the problem. Their objective is to get a good fight and a good kill and something interesting to do tonight, especially for their fleet, if they are in a fleet. Like, the FC's job is to get content for their fleet members. My job is to finish as many plexes as possible in the amount of time that I'm working, because I'm not trying to get good fights or not good fights. I'm trying to defend or take a system. I'm trying to get an objective done. The fighting is just a component of how that works. And so by knowing what my objective is and fighting my fight, not their fight, I can win in spite of the fact that maybe even they have superior forces. But if they don't want what I want, if a cow mill guy comes and kicks me out of a plex, I have a bigger problem. They're going to sit there and run the plex and take it from me. But if a pirate runs me out of the plex, he and I we're playing different games. We have different objectives. The pirate isn't trying to stop me from running the site. They're just trying to catch me and kill me. So I can win my game as long as I don't buy in to their game. That's a big piece of all of this. And so if you have a corp, it's good to have objectives, something for your corp to be working towards. And that needs to be a thing that, while it can be disrupted by other people messing with you, ultimately, the people messing with you is just a part of the puzzle, right? If you need to mine a certain amount of stuff, and sometimes your guys are going to get ganked, then working that into the equation, how do we minimize how much we get ganked? How much do we maximize the resources that we have? So that way we can achieve our objectives of collecting enough resources in spite of the setbacks and the threats. Single vet trying to play the game and teach newbies does not work when 5 vets can force PvP when you're trying to teach basic PvE. I say this as somebody who has, as a vet, taught newbies my entire time in EVE. It is absolutely doable. It's just you have to have good information, like knowledge about how the game works, how you can achieve your goals, what kind of experiences you're trying to create for your people, and what threats are out there and what steps need to be taken to protect against those threats. If you have 10 newbies and you throw them into Tristan's, you can go and be successful in faction warfare, even if they're brand new. It really depends on what you're trying to do as your objective. You're trying to make money and build a bigger and move into a wormhole. This is back in 2010. And that's fair, and that can be hard. I do find that the nebulous trying to make money sometimes becomes a challenging one because, I mean, I always say don't try to do something in order to do something else, but like having a project that raises you the money might be a good idea. But I think that the thing I would stress to you is that new groups form all the time. New groups collect enough resources in order to move into the wormholes all the time. So I would suggest that there could be things that you could adapt to make your group more effective at doing so. I don't like I said, I don't know exactly like what the ganking situation was in that, and it sounds like it was a long time ago. But the truth of the matter is that if you want to occupy a wormhole for your group, that's not that unreasonable of a thing to just throw together enough stuff to be, and then just realize that like on a long enough timeline, that wormhole will be blown up. Everything that's inside of it needs to be considered lost until it's extracted. And I think that that's a pretty good objective to work towards. I just, as a leader, one of your 2 basic jobs are to provide direction and to help mitigate the hardship, right? If people are having losses, it's your job to help figure out a way to minimize that, but also help make sure that your players don't get discouraged too much from it. Like make it so that you're robust enough to be able to deal with the threats that are out there and smart enough to minimize the damage from those threats. I would love to find an active RP group, rare those days. Pick an empire and I can tell you which group you might want to look at. Now it's just me and Alta, unfortunately. I mean, it's never too late to get started doing something, for sure. The problem is that it's not very useful to me to tell you what you could have done in 2010 to be better. That just feels like I'm kicking you while you're down. I will say that like I love the idea of you like wanting to be engaged with stuff. I will say if anybody is interested in being engaged with stuff, the Convocation of Empyreans is recruiting. I'd be happy to help enable you to become an FC, to become a leader. We do need more leaders within our stuff to run our programs. We have programs already made. We've got all the resources available. I just need more people that want to go and actually do stuff so that we can empower it. So if that is interesting to you, make sure to check out the Convocation of Empyreans. We've got blueprints, we've got resources, we've got knowledge for days. We just need more energetic and active leadership. If you're in Caldari space, that is dangerous. If you want Caldari RP group, I mean, IRED is the Caldari, like, go talk to IRED. That would be issue Reata. Hold on. Yeah, these guys. Ishuk Rata Enforcement Directive. These are the Caldari RPers. Laura Cord mentioned. I know. Oh, it dated the video. Phoenix Naval Systems is also pro Caldari. Isn't PNS more Mimitar? I don't know. I know they're eating calm. I thought they were more on the Mimitar side. Yeah, because isn't Eliza very Mimitar? No? Maybe? I don't know. Right now I'm in Patra with Kyber, so it's a dangerous space too. Kyber's awesome. Like I said, I was the CEO for Kyber for a while. You always see PNS around Yantey Lepouf. I mean, maybe. PNS is definitely more not empire agnostic. They're more eating calm than anything, I think. If you have social anxiety, I guess it makes all of this a little bit harder. I mean, yeah, that is a big piece to it, especially if you're going to be a leader, right? But that is one of the things I really like about EVE Online is that the skills that make you good at EVE Online are not gaming skills. They're people skills. They're real skills, right? So, yeah, you don't have to decide to make your own corp and try to make them do something. You can go and join something else that's happening or just do your own thing. But if something like leadership and social skills are something that you want to work on for yourself, EVE Online is a great place to work on those things, to push yourself and to grow. Good for you. If you have anxiety, you get to talk with others about the fun stuff you already fixate on. Yeah, that is true. Like, you know, if you have social anxiety, don't try to make a corp, but, you know, find a good corp and see if you can believe in it. Dutch Gunner is, Dutch Gunner, whatever you want. Whatever you want to say about Wicked Angels, I will back up. Dutch Gunner is a great guy. You should definitely pay attention to what he's doing. Consider joining the Wicked Angels if you want. Also, his statement about Ark is absolutely correct. I think I have everything here for it? Thought I did. No? All right. Well, there is a group called the Arydanika Research Consortium with a channel called Consortium Operations in-game. And they also have a Discord. If you want to get involved with the lore and coordination and RP, I strongly recommend going to the Ark Discord. That's where all the exciting stuff gets talked about. '07? I miss anything else? I think like we're having good conversations here. This is good. We're having good topics. I am going to join the militia though, because we got here in a little bit. Might as well be part of it already. So, in the event that you want to join militia, if you want to get involved in the deeper stuff, if you want to get a little bit further, this does not require like any amount of skills or anything like that. You can get directly out of the career agents and the epic arcs and go straight into faction warfare if you want to. In fact, if you go into Exordium, the systems at the edges here, these 4 systems at the very points, these systems have a shipcaster. And if you're a new player, you can use those shipcasters once to take you to the military headquarters of your core empire. Now, before you join faction warfare, I do recommend that you possibly get a few things set up, right? It is useful, potentially, to get some ships and stuff set up ahead of time before you jump into the militia by bringing it to the military headquarters and setting things up, or wherever you're going to stage out of. Because once you're in the war, you're in the war. And if you drop out of it, you're going to need another 24 hours to be able to get back into it. So making sure that you have a supply of cheap ships that you can reship into is a really good big piece of being successful. But either way, if you go to the military headquarters, there should be at least some... There's industry there, but then there's also markets and stuff there. So you might be able to build, get basic equipment. But you need to go to a station that is owned by the empire that you want to join. It's dangerous maybe to do it in faction warfare space, because if you join the faction warfare and that system is owned by your enemy, you won't be able to undock unless it's a free frontline. So it's best to have your little protected place, your staging area, set up your staging area, Get your, dozen or so frigates or whatever you want to do. Get them all set up in the system. I'm in Intaki, which is the military war headquarters for the Galente. And then you open up the Theaters of War page, and you go to Open Faction Selection, Empire, and then you choose which empire you want to join, and then enlist. Now, when you in order to enlist directly, you must have positive standings with that empire, unmodified. You can get better faction standings through the SOE Epic Arc and the Visions of Greatness Epic Arc. Both are very good for standings, and you can use a Glamourix to even make it easier and better. But now that I am in the militia, anybody that is in the opposing militia can attack me. This is why you don't want to do it when you're in dangerous space. You don't want to do it while you're necessarily like in Jita or something like that. You want to do it when you're already pre-staged. Now, the nice thing about using the military war headquarters is a thing called the Shipcaster. So I can go into the Theaters of War, and I can say, like, okay, well, these are all the different front lines. The bright systems are the front lines. That's where the exciting stuff is. The slightly darker systems are the command outposts. Those are less exciting, but still rewarding to do. And then there's the rear guards, which have very, very, very low rewards, but they have special hacking sites for people that are involved in faction warfare. And you can technically still do sites there, especially if you need to like complete tasks for the military campaigns. Although military campaign tasks only count if the system is contested. So if it's vulnerable or secure, then it may not count. So, but you can go into these systems. Be like, this system is stable, so this system won't work, right? But if we keep looking, we might be able to find one. Probably all these rear guards are stable, because basically, because of the event, or because of the tasks, any system that isn't stable does get pressure to be stabilized. Yeah, see, this one is contested. I had to go to the front line in order to find one that's contested. But you can always go into an enemy rear guard and plex it there and start making progress and move it off of stable. Again, you won't get very much LP for the sites, but it does complete the task. Either way, the thing that I want to bring your attention to is these three circular things that are all in major home front systems. So these circular things are called the Shipcaster. You can see that right now the Intaki Shipcaster is connected to Anschwitz, Hallinan, and Maklinamod. Now, in the past, I've used this in order to get out there for like a mission, which you can do faction warfare missions pretty effectively to get standings. That isn't what we're covering today, though. So I am here, and I want to be able to get back here again. So we're just actually going to make it really easy, and we're going to go right here to Maklinamod. Now we could hit that destination. It is only 3 jumps away. But I'm going to use the fancy Shipcaster anyway. Bulwarks are great places to stage your gear if you're getting into faction warfare. Yes, I agree. Bulwarks are. The headquarters is always a bulwark, though. So when in doubt, just the headquarters is fine. So I warp to the Federation Shipcaster. I hope I don't get killed by the Gunstar. Shouldn't. Probably won't even lock me. Now, when you join the militia, you also join the militia channel. So this is a good place. Even if you don't really know anybody, you're not part of a militia group or anything like that, this is a good place to start talking, getting to know people, finding militia groups, etc., etc. You can just join the militia directly and then find good people that way. And look, it's already ready for me. We can see Maklinamod or whatever. We have 51 seconds. We're going to jump in. And here you can see we are already now in the war zone. We're in the front lines. Setonia is in local. That's always good. And then you can open up your probe window to see all the different sites. Now, since we are in a front line and I'm in a basic frigate, I'm looking to get these scout basic sites. They're really fast and really good, and I also want to see whether or not I can kill it easier now that they're they nerfed the rats a little bit. And then we can see here, though, that site is already open. Somebody's already running it already, or at least somebody has already warped to it. So I can open up my D-scan. I can set my angle to 5 degrees, maximum range, hold my D-scan button, and then click on the site, and that tells me that there is a kestrel inside of this site. Now, there are no enemy war targets in the system, so I'm going to guess that that site has a Cytonia in it. But we'll find out. And you can see that, like I said, it's just there. I'll show you in a second about what I meant by like them showing up already. But we're going to go in. I tend to like to warp to the gate at range. I'm pretty sure I just did. If you want to warp to the gate at range, you can actually warp in anywhere up to 70 kilometers. I didn't. No, yes, I did. A little bit. And then you can go in. Now that I'm at the site, I want to switch my radius to 360 and my range to 1. So that way I can see when there's things outside. There's already things that are too close, so I'm going to bump it down. 0.5. Nope. Hey! I was right! It is Cytonia. Hi, Cytonia. Mind if I steal your LP? So I know that a Prophecy Navy issue and 2 Omens can't get into this site. So I'm not really worried about that. But I can reduce my range further. And now they're not even on my D-scan at all. So that way I can keep an eye on my D-scan to see if there's anybody getting ready to get into the Plex, and I can make a decision about whether or not I want to hang out once that happens. The Kestrel and the Kestrel, I bet? Yeah. Mm-hmm. No Quaif skin for that, Tristan? I mean, if you insist. And this site's almost over. So in 14 seconds, I'll steal half of Kestrel's, Cytonia's LP. You know, funny. Oh, nope, never mind. I guess we have to kill one more rat. So there we go. I just got the site completed. And even though there's 2 of us in here, I still got 5,625 loyalty points, which is, I mean, roughly 5 million ISK. A couple of sites will be enough to get you a Navy blueprint or whatever. And then, again, this is like the smallest site, and also I split it with someone else. Now then, we can see that there's one site that's already open. That's the Caldari Moderate. But we can see on the probe scanner, there's other sites too. There's a medium advanced and there's a small Navy 1, but they're not on here, which means no one has ever warped to them before. I'm going to pull in my drones. A site first spawns on the probe scanner and does not show up as a beacon until somebody warps to it. So just to show you what I mean by that. Oh, shit. Also, God damn it, the thing I hate the most about military campaigns. If you are doing a military campaign, make sure you have applied to all, you're participating in your tasks, otherwise you won't get credit for it. Just in case, I'm going to, that one, we'll just do them all, just to make sure I'm participating in them. Okay, great. So now I want to go run this small Navy 1, right? It isn't here, so what we're going to see is as soon as I warp to it, it's going to spawn as a beacon. So I warp to it, and boom, it spawned as a beacon. So that means, if you pay attention, you will know if there's a site that's there and it hasn't shown up yet. You'll know the moment that anyone tries to warp to it, because it'll appear here. It also means that when you warp to something for the first time, you're kind of revealing to everyone that's what you're doing. So one of the things I do like to do is to basically warp to every single site. Like you start the warp and then you cancel warp to all of the different sites just to open them all up. So that way they don't know exactly which one I'm heading to. Understand your plex type in the ships on scan, like in a basic, and see a hook bill on scan, you're safe. Yep, that's correct. If you understand what can and cannot go into a site, you know what does and doesn't need to be paid attention to on D-scan. So like, for instance, right now I'm in a small Navy 1. So anything that isn't anything bigger than a destroyer, so a cruiser or above, and anything that is Tech 2 or Pirate or Tech 3, none of that can come in here. So if it's a cruiser or above, if it's Tech 2 of any kind, or if it's Tech 3 of any kind, cannot come into this room. I'm only worried about Tech 1 or Navy frigates and destroyers while I'm in this site. That is one of the things that makes this so good for newer players, because as a newer player, you can grab a frigate, and then you can go run the frigate sites, and then only frigates can come and fight you. Pretty sure the Rogue Edge newest task requires you to do it in a medium. Hold on. Is that true? Oh, yeah. It does say medium and large complexes. Well, we will see. That's actually really interesting. We will run this site, and we'll see whether or not it gives me credit for it, and it shouldn't. The last one didn't give me credit for it because I wasn't applied to it yet. This one also shouldn't give me credit for it. That's actually really interesting because, like, hold on. It says medium and large. What about moderates? What about battlefields are large? Will battlefields count? Moderates count? There are 2 tasks up right now, a generic one and a medium large only. Which is partially why the rewards are so good. The rewards were made better, though. That's fair. Y'all could have said that earlier. I don't know what other tasks are brand new. I don't know, 100,000. Actually, that's just remote repair. Wait. Hold on. Why is this task that's older? And to destroy capsuleer ships, 500,000 per contribution. Oh, that's damage. This is destroy that's damage. So hard to compare any of this stuff because we don't have enough information. But they did, I mean, like, the rewards are better. You did that? Okay, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I'll own it. I'll take it, I guess. We did mention that several times. You just don't listen to us. Look, there's actually, you guys are talking a lot more than normal. And that's good. I'm dumb. It's fine. I was busy talking to. You're right. Thank you for jumping on that one for me. Moderates count as medium. Okay, so Tony, got it. So then also battlefields count as large. Battlefields don't count because they're their own thing. Okay. But opens count as large. Ah, there we go. So then, do you want to give me an idea as to how much you bumped up the rewards? If it's not 20 times. Supply depots are fun with long-range bombers. Didn't they just put in a change that makes it a lot harder to do supply depots with bombers? I'd love to try one of those large 10s at some point. But I know there's a huge group that come for those, and it's probably not soloable. The Dash 10 one is for T3 destroyers, and we will be doing that. Stoneskin, you should be on our Discord. We've got information about it. By the way, there's 69 of you here and only 25 likes. Fixer the Guinea Starve. No! Please, for the guineas! Like the stream! I even got a new picture of them for this morning, or for the opening stream. They were bumped 4 to 5 times, as far as I know. Okay. I mean, yeah, that's still significant, for sure. I also compared it an extremely highly rewarding one. It is. Look, I stand by my argument. I'm trying to convince people to be into doing this stuff, and showing people that there's one that's, some of these tasks are worth as much as they are. I think is good for that. I stand by my my segment early. Of course they did. I was just training alts to bombers just for depots. Look, I'm not saying it's impossible. I do know that they did tweak some stuff when it came to the supply depots recently. It seemed like it was against that kind of strategy. Artie Lokis, do you like to say hi when you're doing that? Yeah, that's true too. I mean, with a fleet of supply depots, you can, or sorry, with a fleet of stealth bombers, you can probably whack a supply depot before they could even do anything. I think it was more like trying to solo it with a super kitey ship. That was the thing that they ultimately made more challenging. We are almost halfway done with this site. Yantey getting 86 mil and 225,000 LP for capturing defending 18 plexes is nice. They do have to be medium and large plexes, though, apparently, I found out. It's a little bit more challenging, because it not only do you have to do bigger sites, but that also makes those sites take longer. Still is a very, very nice reward. Remember, you do not need a large ship to do medium and large plexes. The Algos setup that we have called Anubis, even, Algos can run large complexes. Be cool if haulers had jobs in the Warzone do, flying rare. I do, like, that is, going back to what I was saying earlier with, like, things that I would prefer for tasks, I actually really want, like, turn-in tasks. Like, turn in a whole bunch of ore and minerals into Amar Prime. But, like, hauling stuff to locations in the Warzone that is too big to put in just a plain old ship, so requires haulers, I think is a really cool idea. I think that ultimately the problem is that it'll just be solved by a dude with a jump freighter. I actually really like the idea of, like, replacing some of the faction warfare missions with distribution missions as a way of doing that too. It'd be really good. But yeah, like, distribution and resource extraction for the purposes of the Warzone is a piece that I think has always been missing from. Yes, the Algos Navy issue is even better. That's true. You can make it so that the sites themselves require T1 haulers or something like that. No, and that's something that FC's also talked about quite a bit. And I feel like this is a small piece to that, but they absolutely could do more. There is one example of this, which is the fact that the shipcasters do require you to come and deliver things to online the shipcaster. So that's kind of cool. So there is some like logistics involved in that. I think that it could definitely be explored more though. There should be a way to turn in ships and other stuff to the Navy anchorages, like a militia hangar that you can only get one ship at a time. It would be kind of cool for you to like make a thing where you can put like in fit ships, and then people could, I don't know, pay LP or something in order to pull them out. I don't know. It'd be really hard to do, honestly. Like that's why corporations and alliances exist. It'd be very difficult for FC to like implement a system that would allow us to do that. That's why alliances exist. FC's job is to create problems. It's our job to create solutions. Player run LP exchange market would be cool. Yeah, I mean, well, so LP being traded was something that was very not okay for a long time. In fact, the idea of even like LP tax is relatively new and is like a really big deal. There's so much more support now for a corporation that wants to do faction warfare than ever before. The best way to do it, the thing I like to do when we do it is I tax the LP, but then I also put up a corporation project to earn LP that pays you out ISK. So basically a certain percentage of the LP that you earn, we take that percentage and pay you for it with a certain amount of ISK per LP. That's the kind of thing that we set up when we're doing. The FC is leaving Pochvin alone and not addressing the multi-boxers because they think they want players to fix it. Well, yeah, multi-boxers versus a fleet is like it's the same thing, like mechanically. Having a single person multi-boxing a bunch of people versus a fleet of people that are all individuals, mechanically for the balance of things are kind of the same thing. The reason why the Pochvin stuff works is because it is null sec space. If it was in a high sec, then there'd be a bigger problem because there's only so much you can do about it. But like the people who live in Pochvin should kill them. Not if they use unallowed input broadcasting. Correct. Yes. Can't use input broadcasting. Can, but it would hurt FC's bottom line. FC has shown multiple times that they are willing to quote unquote hurt their bottom line to do things that are destructive to multi-boxers. And in general, historically, when they have done that, it actually doesn't hurt their bottom line because multi-boxers are often replaced by authentic players because multi-boxing reduces the quality of gameplay for everybody. So the more they're hard on multi-boxers, the more the game is better for people that are just trying to play the game. These macros that have random delays built in. I mean, you say that, but there's also plenty of people that I've seen that just multi-box, and there's plenty of ways of like it almost doesn't require input broadcasting. No, you can't without hurting fleets. Wait, I can't what? No, it's not. One person will follow his own orders. Fleets may not stay on primary. We're talking about people that are doing well understood, orchestrated sites. So I actually like a single person multi-boxing 15 people pilots will have a much harder time actually running the site than 15 players that have all flown this together and they're flying their own ships. Like, do not underestimate the challenge that comes from attempting to run a fleet of 15 people as well. It's not that hard to hit Alt Tab and hit F1 and F2. It isn't, and it's not even like if you've ever seen it, it's not even that. Like usually they have like tiny windows on their screen. They basically just have to click through all of them really, really quick. It's crazy how fast somebody can actually control multiple ships if that's what they're trying to do. Let us go back and find a different ship run plexes. By the way, I did not get credit for that site. Eh. What do I have around here? Ooh. I at least want some sort of local reps. All these broken ships. Oh, what's this? Oh no, these are going to be high-sec ones. Ah. All right, whatever. Let's go. Really? All right, let's go.
Warp drive active.
I do wish the basics spawned a little bit faster. They seem to spawn very fast. Like every other site would be a basic. Taki is a decent enough of a market. You might be able to buy something there. Yeah. That's fair. Let's just go to Intaki.
Warp drive active.
I met a lady at the same fan fest where Citadels were introduced. She had a class on faction warfare, touted as being the best Tristan pilot in the game. So proud of her. 07, I forget her name. I'm trying to think of who that would be. Yeah, I'm trying to think of who that would be.
Warp drive active.
If you want, I can sell you 6 Pioneers in Intaki. Yeah, I'm sure. I also met Ash at a lore panel and didn't even recognize who I was speaking to. Oh no! Wait, at E Vegas? Because I've never been to FanFest. I said Vegas. Big Brother Passion was great. A couple people that might have been. Don't remember too many like hotshot female faction warfare pilots. What year are you talking about? Not talking about Orleus, right? I assume you're not. No. Go to FanFest? I'm not sure. No, in FanFest, you have not. You've not met me in Iceland. I have not been to Iceland.
Warp drive active.
If it was recently, then it might have been Orleans. Wrecking Machine. The Wrecking Machine video. That was. I mean, E Vegas. I've been to E Vegas twice.
Warp drive active.
See, I could also. I also went to E Vegas twice. Nice. I went to E Vegas the year that Citadels were announced. I think it was 2015, and then I also went to E Vegas in 2019 during the Invasion World Tour.
Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted.
All right, let's see. What can I take out there? Do I have anything? Honestly, this can do some medium sight, pretty sure. Have any null? No? Okay. Wheel. Let's go ahead and pick up some more null. I think this should be able to punch through at least medium rats, if not moderates. Otherwise, yeah, I don't have any battle cruisers I can use. Could buy one theoretically. Let's just go. Let's just take this. See what we can do. They only tank about 200 DPS. I'm now sad. Wait. So the elite one, the one for T3 destroyers, that won't count for the objective then? Oh, my stuff is all damaged still. Whoops. No, it's a small. That's unfortunate. Oh, you know what I should have done today? I should have done the hacking in the Galente Bulwark one, too. Hallinan? Do I care if I end up in Hallinan? Hallinan's all the way over there. Like, close. Actually, you know what? I want to end up there. Let's go. Not to get off topic, my power raids are getting harder to counter now. Uh-oh. Been an uptick in new players since Exordium launched? That's an interesting question. Contested Rogue FRF Elite. There's that -10 site. There's a lot of sites in the system. If you look in beacons, not a lot of them are open. So there is a large Navy 4. But there's nobody inside of it. Unfortunate. So we're going to try the medium Navy 1 first.
Drive active.
There's three people besides me in local. There's a Heron. It's also named Timber Vale. This is why you want to rename your ships. Because I now know that this guy is in a Heron. You don't want to give away free intel if you don't have to. But it does mean that I do know that the only person that's actively hostile to me is in a Heron. So, gives me a little bit of comfort. Probably because it's almost stable. Boo. Right. I'm not used to systems being stable all the time. Now I'm working with the widest range D-scan right now, because that way I can catch something as soon as it appears, and then I can make a decision about what I want to do about it. But because my thing is fully ranged, it doesn't... Holy shit. Local just went crazy, but that's also like a multi-boxer. So I'm going to keep an eye on things, but it probably is going to be fine. But I'm keeping maximum range because I want to gain... One of my biggest things that I spend my time on when I'm doing this is I'm trying to keep track of like what's going on out there. So now I see that there is a succubus. Okay, so all those guys are in coercers. So this is just a bunch of coercers. I don't know what that means as far as like me goes, though. That means that they could all drop in on this site. Probably not, but they could. So I'm going to keep an eye on it. My guess is, if I had to guess, we can go like this and go 5 degrees. I'm going to be like, no? Okay. My guess was that they were going to be going after that, but the supply depots, but maybe not. We have now we have a buzzard and a bunch of coercers as well as the heron and the succubus. Now, the coercers are the only thing out there that can get into this site with me because I'm in a Navy site. And it looks like the coercers are getting out of my D-scan range. If I look at the warp points, the Enaluri gate is outside of my D-scan range, so that makes sense if they're traveling there. But there is still one coercer that's within range of me. Weird. It's within what I call 5 not 1. So we can look at like what is within 5 not 1 of us. Maybe they are at this. Oh. No? What else is there between at 5 not 1? There he is. It's that one guy at this station. Or at least at that cluster. No, yeah, it's pretty much just the station. There's still nobody on the gate with me, though. I'm going to go back to kind of paying attention to the broader scope of things. Even though right now I'm kind of blind. Right now I'm blind to the coercer getting ready to come in here, but I've kind of written them off. He's a multi-boxer. He was by the station. I can every once in a while bump down to 1 AU just to make sure he's not at my gate. Oh, here we go. There's a Tristan. And we have no new allies, so it could be an enemy. I'm going to check the station again. Coercer's at that place. Don't know where the Tristan is. Now we've got rats to kill. I'm going to focus on the rats for a little bit. Made an ISD account the other day. As soon as I made the character, I had 4 males from Capsulators ready to help out new bros. Quite impressive. Wait. I'm pretty sure if you make an ISD account, you're not supposed to tell us that you made an ISD account. A stable frontline system blows my mind. Oh, looks like there's a new friendly militia guy, but he's in a capsule. Shh. I mean, technically speaking, we don't know who his main character is, so I guess all he is an ISD to us now, maybe? I don't know. Caldari getting pasted right now? Wait, what? They're not defending on purpose? God, I hate Calmel. Because of LP trading. Yeah, you know what? Whatever, man. Screw those guys. That's just an opportunity. That means that you should go make yourself a Calmill guy and go and do some stuff because nobody's going to compete with you. They've lost 13 systems and 14 oh, shit. Hold on. Oh, okay. So you're just going past me. All the coercers. They're not here. Very silly UI question. How do you set anomalies to that separate window from your scanner? Like this window here. So if you go up to your overview and go to more, you can go add tab, and then you can check the box in new window. So then you can have different overview windows for different purposes. So for instance, like I have this overview right here that is only for things that are like involving the like an event or something like that I can change this one to. But yeah, you can have multiple overview windows with different filters applied to them. They also attack their structures in walls. The problem with faction warfare. Wait. Who's Aikawarazu? Oh man, I'm taking the fight. I'm taking the fight. I might get ripped apart by a bunch of oh man. Might get messed up by a bunch of coercers. I'm gonna take the Korax fight. Oh, he's friendly. He's friendly. He's friendly. Oh my god, this happened again. Sutonia, please. Seriously. Seriously. I need to figure out what's going on. There's this really weird thing that's going on right now, which is that I don't know why, but like my combat tab is my main tab. And for some reason, this second tab keeps becoming my active tab. And I don't think it's with me clicking on it. Now, a few days ago, like a week ago or whatever, somebody asked me how to change the orders of the tabs. So like I tried to split off a tab and then put it back in to the window. And I tried going into the overview settings for this whole thing to see about the order here. And I wasn't able to necessarily solve the problem for them. But ever since I've done that now, it seems, I don't know if it's like when I dock, there's something weird happening that's making it so that this 2 tab becomes my default tab. And it's almost gotten me killed a few times because it doesn't, I need to change it to just show characters or whatever. But like, I don't know why my active tab keeps switching. It's now happened enough times that I know I'm not just accidentally clicking it or something like that. I think it's maybe when I dock or I can't figure. This is why I haven't submitted bug report yet. But for some reason, my second tab continues to be my default tab, and I don't know how to do anything. You just Omega'd your first account with ISK only? Feels good, man? Hell yeah. This whole losing on purpose to manipulate LP prices should be forbidden. Guys, this is a sandbox game. LP trading is emergent gameplay. You might not want to like it. You might not like it, but if you don't like it, you need to get in there and disrupt it. These are player things. This is player interactions. The sandbox. We don't need FC stepping in and artificially forcing some things over others. Explain why this is a bad thing? Which part? We've talked about multiple things. Can you explain why which is a bad thing? I don't really... Oh, the LP trading? I really don't understand LP trading now that deplexing, O-plexing provides the same value. Why? So the reason why some people think it's a bad thing is because, again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is like you can't force people to buy into the conceit, right? Like the central conceit of faction warfare is that the empires are fighting over territory control, and you are functioning as a proxy for that territory control. So as a participant, you should care about your empire, you should want your empire to win, and you should care about how much territory your empire controls. But the problem is that there's nothing that actually requires that to be true, right? Like they can incentivize things in certain ways or whatever, but like you're a human. They don't get to choose why you're doing what you're doing. They can just construct the mechanics around it and reward it or punish it in different ways. And so, but that's where the emergent gameplay comes from, right? Like people want to try to like manipulate the overall architecture to their benefit. But again, people can break that up. If the main groups are all conspiring together to not make any progress in certain systems, you can totally mess that up by going in and doing it anyways, because they can't stop you from doing it because you're in the militia too. I used to freak out at people who were plexing in a boon, because a boon, like trying to, or like not plexing in a boon, but trying to take a boon or the Galente. It's just so much. It was so much more valuable to the Galente as being owned by the Caldari. Now that was back in the before days. Now it's a little bit different. Still, it's just like, but that's just the nature of it. That's like saying botting is player behavior because you could do something about it. Well, that's a little different, because so like botting is what do they call it? Choice multiplexing. TCP had a really interesting, or FC I guess now, had a really interesting term for this idea, where it's like the real problem with multiboxing is that one person should be able to have so much effort or so much impact. By multiboxing, you're increasing the amount of impact a person can have. Yes, but it destroys the whole purpose of faction warfare. LP trading does not destroy the purpose of faction warfare, because it's players engaging with the faction warfare systems. Again, the story of like once upon a time, the players decided to conspire together to ensure that there was no faction warfare missions available to anybody, and that was just a thing. It only lasted for a little bit of time, because players were only able to maintain that standard for a period of time before other people, altered it. Oh gosh, even more in local. That's interesting. I know I was trying to make a point the other day in Rookie Chat to explain why nobody was selling basic stuff in EXO, because they make 20% less X. Yeah, well, they would have to sell it for 20% more to make the same amount of ISK. That's part one. But another thing is that it just takes some time, right? People, in order to supply the stuff, people need to figure out what needs to be supplied. People have to be willing to supply. I've heard that, oh gosh, what's their name? There's a CSM member that's really big with newbies that has been working really hard to... Kashala Aderon, I think, has actually been doing a lot of work. Their group has been doing a lot of work to supply Exordium. But again, this is player behavior. Like, people have to choose to do it. There are going to be people that choose to support Exordium simply because they want to be useful to new players. They want that to be their purpose in the world, is to supply all of the ammunition that anybody might possibly need in Exordium. That's someone's purpose in existence. And that's what makes EVE so good, and that's the part that so many players miss out on, is the fact that everybody's got their little tiny niche. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing. It doesn't have to be the most profitable thing. You just happen to be the guy that's doing it, right? You're the guy that's supplying all of the Algos Navy issues. You're the guy that's making sure that there's always drone link damage augmenters in the military headquarters. Whatever it is. Those are the kind of things that make you find a place in EVE. It also makes it so you can make, if you do it right, you can make a lot of money. And also it makes it so that you have skin in the game and personal amnesty when somebody comes and messes up what you're doing. It makes you care. And that's what matters. That's the thing that makes this all important, is just like tricking you into caring about something. Even if it's just how much ammo is available in Exordium. No MMO will ever solve the battleground point grind problem. Battlegrounds inevitably become a puppy kicking sim of people farming points to stuff. The point is that to trick people, so that way the way to game the system involves a behavior that that we actually want from people. A good example of this was during the Shadow Wars, right? When you turned in stuff for completing tasks. Excuse me. When you completed tasks in Shadow Wars, you received these tokens, kind of like now, that showed what you turned, that were your credit for turning things in. So what we did was we put up this big bounty and rewards for the people that turn in the most tokens, right? And I kept getting criticisms that it's like, oh, well, you're rewarding the person that's turning in the most tokens, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they earn the tokens. What happens if somebody just buys a bunch of the tokens off of the market and then turns it into you? Your entire plan is ruined. Somebody could just throw ISK at the problem and win your little contest. And my point is that, like, that is fine. Because if you think about it, my goal isn't to get as many tokens as possible. My goal is to encourage people to help support the Gallente in the Shadow Wars, right? And so the token represents progress that has been done. And so if somebody is buying those tokens from the market, then the person who actually does do the work gets value from their task because they sell it to the guy who's buying it off of the market, who then gives it to me for the turn-in. So it wasn't that they're getting credit for it without it actually, the work still got done. I just care about the work getting done. So by creating a system that people look at it and they go, oh, shit, I can just... Uh-oh. Hold on. Oh, no. Okay, gone. Oh, shit, I could just buy them off the market. What that actually does is it puts additional market pressures on people buying those tokens, which makes those tokens worth more, which makes doing it worth more, which means I am still rewarding the people who are doing the task. So the smart, clever guy that found a way around my system is still doing what I want them to do. That's the real secret. That's the good design, is when you can be like, okay, well, here's the system as it's designed to be done. Here's a way for you to circumvent that. But even in doing so, we still get what we want out of you. Another good example of this is like the daily tasks, right? You can find cheesy ways to get around a daily task or even the air career goal task. It isn't worth it to FC to ensure that the task is never done outside of its normal way, right? Like if you have a damage capsuleer task and you and your buddy duel each other and you shoot each other and that's your way of getting done with it, that's not like, yes, you have done it in a way that isn't the initial intent of the thing, but you still did something. And here's the real secret, okay? Here's the real secret about game design. You think that you're so fucking clever that the game developer thought about this thing. They want to reward you for going out and shooting people, but you're so goddamn clever that you and your friend or you and your alt got around that by doing this tricky way. And look how clever you are. Well, here's the thing about it. Video game is art, and art is about creating experiences. It isn't just about getting you to go do exactly the thing that they told you to do. The whole point of this is to have you feel different emotional states: investment, longing, triumph, pain, pleasure, whatever, right? And so putting out a thing that is a challenge that has a relatively obvious way to get around it is just a really good way of making people feel clever. Like, FC knows that people are going to do that. You're not actually getting over on them. They are tricking you into feeling clever by giving you a challenge with a fairly obvious but not specified secondary solution to the problem. You're not getting over on anybody. You're actually just buying into the system. I like tasks that feel like they matter. No, I agree. And I think that there's a reason for both. Like, both kinds of tasks matter and exist. It's also why I like the things like such a high task with some of these completion rewards, because then it's meaningful for them to be completed. I'm saying, like, just because you think that you're so fucking clever doesn't mean that you're not falling directly into the hands of what the developers of the game want you to be doing. Even if it's just playing the game and having fun. So we can see here, I did get progress. 1 site completed for this task. And we can see I got 4.8 million ISK for this one site. That's pretty good. All right. Well, I think that that's going to be it for today. We're going to head back to... I'm just going to... yeah, I'm going to head to Fleet. Stop there for now. I was going to do my second channel post tomorrow, but I think I want to give people a little bit more warning about that ahead of time. So tomorrow I'm going to do a stream. I should probably, knock on wood. I do have my tips for new players. My 10 more tips for really new players to go over. So hopefully we'll do that tomorrow, unless there's other news to cover. I do also still need to edit my video. I want to do pretty good editing pass on that Men's Repola video that we did yesterday. Not a lot of people saw it yesterday, so if you haven't already and you do like the lore, Tuesday's stream was very, very good. But if you want to wait, I'm going to do my really, I hope to like get my fingers into it and do a real editing pass for it, because I think that this story about Men's Repola and all this stuff, I'm trying to make a series of videos that take us from Templar 1 all the way up to Vanguard before the release of Avalon next month. So worth checking that out. Just enjoy the game and be social, FC fan base. No, we're going to break it daily. It does make me really sad how many times everybody just you can tell that FC's put so much work into trying to make something that rewards a fleet of people, people being having friends and working together, and then watching Reddit and other places interpret the content exclusively from like a multi-boxing perspective. That is a very toxic mentality. I think I blame skill extractors for this. Skill extractors, not injectors. We've talked about this before. But it is... I mean, there's a lot of cursed design problems, and the multi-boxing is definitely one of them. That lore video is great. Really enjoyed it. Excellent. I appreciate it. Yeah, so the part 1, which was Tuesday's video, was covering the entire story of Men's Repola. Basically, it is the story of the book Templar 1. I literally go through chapter by chapter the entire story of Templar 1, but we exclusively split out Men's Repola, Ishikone CEO's story of that, because we've been talking about this since Warpath. This whole conspiracy, everything involving the Intaki Syndicate, everything involving Air, SOE, Upwell, the Jita attacks. I think that all of this is very connected. All of it has to do with a conspiracy that really... The thread that I've used to pull at this conspiracy has been Men's Repola. And I hope that the Tuesday video really showed how entrenched he was when it comes to Templar 1, and specifically the idea of the early days of war clones. And then the next episode, we will show how his position in Templar 1 led to the downfall of Tibus Heth. Because they don't explicitly say it. You have to know what happened in Templar 1. You have to know what Men's has been up to in order to understand the events that lead to the downfall of Tibus Heth. So that's going to be part 2. And then part 3 is going to be a whole bunch of tinfoiling about basically the period of time from the downfall of Tibus Heth to the rise of the Vanguard. Now, I hope that something big will happen in game. Hope is real. I think that Avalon is going to be interesting. It's not going to be nearly as dialed in as we probably would like it to be. By this fall, we're going to get it very locked in. By the time we have Vanguard gameplay that directly corresponds to military campaigns, I think that's going to be a big one. But yeah. There is stuff happening in-game. There's stuff happening in the game all the time. It is sometimes difficult to chase after those, for sure. I mean, the last big one was the Syndicate breakout attacks. They add EHP yet to the damaged gates? What? Do the Eve boys write more of these stories? The vast majority of like the chronicles were written during 2004 to 2000. No, sorry, 2006 to 2010. The two books were written. Well, there are three books. One was written, I think, in 2006. One was written in 2008. One was written in 2010, 11. That's Burning Life, Templar 1, or Empyrean Age, and then Templar 1. The last major chronicle that's come out was Hostile, which was almost a year ago or so now. So they don't write as much as far as like solid chronicles anymore, but it is much more environmental storytelling. New Eden news articles, things actually happening in game that have to be noticed by players. Sometimes they don't get noticed by players. Sometimes they're not seen as pretty big deals. You know, whatever. Like this is a game. This is a story that is playing out in real time, and just like real time, you know, just like real news. Often, any given moment of news story doesn't tell the whole picture. Only by taking a zoom out and looking at the whole story. That's why every single one of my lore videos, like, okay, well, let's understand what happened today. So in 2018, blah, 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 blah. Like everything, in order to understand what's happening now, you have to give yourself perspective. But FC doesn't do that for us. We just have the disparate pieces scattered across 25 years of game, or well, 20 what, 3 years of gameplay now. Chronicles do exist, but I actually really like the fact that it's so teasy. I do wish that we would get more satisfying resolutions with some mysteries, but especially when the Triglavians got involved, this idea that like we don't have all the information, and so we're trying to piece together the information based on, or the what's going on based on the pieces that we have, is very much how they kind of like to tell the story. Notice the dust on the gates have faded a bit. Nothing new as of yesterday. The files in games do not have gate EHP for the damage for gates. Other gates have EHP, but not the damaged ones. I imagine that's just because they're large collidable objects and they don't, or like they don't need hit points because they're never designed to be shot. I don't know why they wouldn't. I wouldn't read too much into it. Also, Black Ops Smuggler gates are a little different because you can lock and shoot those. I don't think you can do damage. Damn it. Am I going to lose a... I need to lose a ship that it doesn't matter as much. Actually, well, I mean, this is kind of doesn't matter. Let's do more silly things. I think clear NPC actions would help the game. We need real bad guys that really hurt us, instructions, etc. Man, did the player base get mad as fuck when NPCs started attacking player structures. I mean, it still happens in faction warfare and stuff, but like when they did it in nullsec, people lost their goddamn mind. But no, they're definitely, especially in faction warfare scenarios, faction warfare groups kind of agree to be part of the lore a lot more. And so when you see things like NPCs taking actions or going after structures or whatever, it's usually in faction warfare. They are absolutely looking into AI to do this. This has been a big piece of all of this. All right, ready? Oh, can't. Stable safety.
Your security status has been lowered. Warp drive active.
All right, well, I did 0 damage to it when I shot at it. So it doesn't matter what hit points it has, but I did get hit points and I lost security status for it. So like the stream, I lost security status for you. I lost 0.822.
Warp drive active.
Oh, sorry, saddened that they are even looking into AI to do. You realize that, like, hold on. Let me take a step back because I misread what you said earlier. So they absolutely have people that actually, like, when we say NPCs, like when the NPCs attacked, when the Amarian NPCs attacked a Mimitar faction warfare structure, that wasn't AI. That was, if I remember correctly, Delegate Zero commanding the fleet, right? When CSP Affinity and another dev was the people who were like kind of controlling. They spawned the drifters for the Jamil's execution. Like when the NPCs do things in the when the dread attacks happen, or even like with the breakout, the syndicate breakout, those were human beings, actual, like, probably CCP developers, maybe ISD, piloting those people, being NPC actors. That is something that happens all the time. What I'm saying is that what they have, like, and it for years and years, all the way back to like 2011, 2012 or whatever, CCP has been working on better AI to help administer, especially like the empires or the NPC entities and stuff. So, for example, the Diamond Rats were a new kind of decision tree based AI system that was about making rats that behaved more like players, as opposed to the old AI, which is like the normal rats plus sleeper rats and Sancha rats, like that. Those are all very dumb AI. The Diamond Rats were supposed to be a project that's supposed to be about making a better, more intelligent AI system, and that culminates in the drifters. That's what the drifters are, is an experiment in a different kind of AI controller in which you use or behavior trees instead of older AI systems. So they cultivated that, and they've worked on that program for years. And, eventually it evolves into things like the Triglavian AI, inside of the Abyss, and then later on the actual invasions themselves. But again, so like, then there's a higher level to this, which is that, so the entire Triglavian invasions was actually ran by two AI. There's an AI actor that controlled the Triglavian side, and there was an AI actor that controlled Edencom's side. And both of those AI actors, they had objectives, and they had tactics that they could deploy, and they had a bucket of systems that they could use, and they would invade those different systems based on their capabilities. So it was the AI that was choosing which systems to attack when. The Triglavians knew which system they wanted to take, but they would like feint, and they would do other things in order to try to get the systems that they wanted to get. That entire thing was controlled by an AI. The guy, CSP Sledgehammer, that was running the whole thing, he didn't know when any given choice was going to be made. He just, made the buckets and made the priorities and let it loose. And so the AI decided to run Niarja, right? And this is something that CCP before, now FC, has been on the bleeding edge of forever, AI and development. All the way going back, I remember having a conversation with them years and years ago about Left 4 Dead, and about the double AI systems that Left 4 Dead uses, or the double AI systems that Aliens, the Alien game, where you're like hiding from the alien. Like, there's been huge advancements in gaming AI. It's only in the last few years that AI has gotten this whole different meaning to people because of things like LLMs and stuff like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, making the NPC empires, like, for instance, now the decision about where to put down these shipcasters, right? There can only be 3 up at a time, but they can also be blown up. The positions that they get put on is decided by an AI. There's an AI director for each of the 4 empires, and it chooses where would be the best strategic place for it to put these shipcaster sites. But that only puts down the beacon. Then, like I said, somebody has to come and deliver the stuff to that position in order to make it into a real shipcaster. So the positions of these shipcasters are a cooperation between the AI actor that's commanding the Empire and the players that actually activate what the AI is trying to do. That's pretty fucking cool. And I think that we should move more towards that. I think that, as I've said many, many times before, I want this to be a game of Stellaris, where each of the NPC empires are run by an AI, and they have their own objectives, and they're trying to do their own things, and trying to convince us to help them in different ways. And that makes us the X factor. What we do to contribute or not contribute, to disrupt or to help any given effort, is what decides what does and doesn't happen. But the NPCs have to want to do something in order for that to be plausible. And yeah, it could be that like FC could hire 4 different people and like assign them, okay, you're now the military commander for the Minmatar. You role play that all day. But that's not really necessary. That's not even necessarily good, right? Like, you just have storytellers, and then you have the components of what makes the different empires what they are into different decision trees, and then run the simulation. I think that that's a lot cooler and a lot more scalable. And I know that there's a lot of concerns about AI in the modern world, but again, I cannot stress enough, we're not talking about LLMs or anything like that. We're talking about decision trees. We're talking about, like, all video games have AI. In that sort of sense. I agree that EVE AI is closer to AI than LLMs in design. Yeah, LLMs is just one manifestation of a thing that's called deep learning or neural networking learning. And it just happens to be deep neural networking learning on language. You can do the same thing on with other things. You can train AI to notice other kinds of patterns. It's just, we as humans like language, and so LLMs have become, like, there's always a struggle to make technology be useful. There's the technology itself, and then there's the applications of it. We've talked about this a lot when I talk about crypto and stuff. Like, crypto, and more importantly, blockchain. Blockchain's a technology. It's a technology that's wanting for a purpose. All these things like Bitcoin and NFTs and all these things, these are just attempts by engineers to find excuses to implement the blockchain technology, right? Blockchain has certain advantages, it has certain disadvantages. It's just a technology, it's just a way of storing data. But they're trying to figure out a reason to make this useful. Okay, we've got all these tokens. How do we make a token valuable to somebody? And so we have things like Bitcoin and NFTs. In the same way, AI, like, okay, well, we figured out how to do deep neural learning, right? We can now throw in all of the traffic information of the city over the course of the last 6 months, and we can make it so it trains on it, and it can notice patterns and optimize our traffic patterns. So now all of the traffic, on average, waits 20% less before they get a green light. Yay! And that's the kind of stuff that you would use deep learning on before. Also, like things like image recognition, stuff like that. That's like a lot of what original deep learning, neural network learning stuff kind of came from, as well as things like learning how to play games with stuff like Google, the whole project that they're now tied into. What is it? No, not DeepSeek. They trained AI to play games. I can't remember the name. Neurosama is awesome. I do love Neurosama. LLMs have more assets and general programming capabilities currently, but the core root design of EVE and other video game CPUs, advanced NPC CPUs, AI are closer to artificial intelligence in history. Yeah, well, and like I said, AI continues to advance. Software is relatively new. These capabilities are relatively new. And it's true that CCP has been on the bleeding edge of AI in game development for over a decade. Go watch, like they've done presentations at like what is it? GDC, Game Developer Conference, and other stuff like that. Like, EVE Online is an incredibly complex game, and the player base do not truly appreciate the technological marvel that is what we play with. No, DeepSeek was... No, you're right. It was Deep... No, DeepSeek isn't Deep Chinese one? It was DeepSeek because Deep Dream was the other one, right? What's the Chinese at LLM then? AlphaGo, yep. Which was them teaching AI to play Go? That's DeepSeek, I think. No, DeepSeek is the Chinese AI. Damn it, hold on. Google AI project. Play games. It's the thing that DeepMind. They're DeepSeek and DeepMind. Okay, great. So DeepMind is was the original project. Google DeepMind was founded in 2010. It was acquired by Google in 2014. That is the project that made AlphaGo. Oh, so there's two other things that I want to talk about before we wrap this up for the day. First of all, if you want more about this, there is actually a really great YouTube channel that I can recommend called AI and Gaming, I think is what it's called. And he's been discussing this long before LLMs became like the new hotness. I'm wondering if Gal doesn't have a drifter hole, their main focus will be only on road drones and their method of generating wormholes. Maybe. We'll have to find out. Yeah, AlphaGo is the progenitor. That was before Google bought them. All right, I do want to show off one more thing before we go. Well, two more things real quick before we go. One is our very own Stone Skin Snake has made this chart, which I find very useful. So this is basically, and obviously this is, we'll see, there's going to be modifications to this. Also, his refine rate is 0.92, which is going to be extraordinarily impossible to get in high sec. But these are relative numbers, so it should be fine. So he did this calculation. You can also find this in the Discord. So he's figuring out the ISK per M3 of each of the different things, and it does look like they're roughly about 500 ISK per M3 for each of the different rocks. So mining this stuff is absolutely worth it to people. And of course, that will control the value of the crystals, and therefore the value of the stuff that you can get with the crystals. Thank you for that. Also, I want to show off, there is a YouTube channel. This guy messaged me the other day, and then I went and checked out his YouTube channel. But there's this YouTube channel called Eve Compass. I think I put a link down below about it. Post it here. He has this video titled Top 7 Mistakes Industrialists Make in EVE Online 2026 Industry Guide. I think it's a great follow-up to my industry guide. Not that, I mean, I think he made it 4 months ago, so it's not a direct follow-up, but like, if you liked my T1, T2 industry guide and you're interested in getting deeper into it, he's a relatively new content creator, but he's covering stuff that's very cool. You go into Eve Compass, you can see he's got a podcast going on, but he's got several different videos about industry and whatnot. He's been making content for a few months now. So if you can head over to his channel and give him a sub, maybe even tell him that Ash sent you, that'd be pretty cool. What's up, 7th Heaven? Dark Minute, Ochre, Satin, Unlimited? What about it? But I just wanted to show that off before things were done, before we wrap things up today. I think that's it for today. So, like I said, tomorrow I should be streaming again, but make sure you get into the Discord for any updated news. Find Cagnite, turn in, need 15,000 minerals. Yep. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to get that stuff. Yeah, the unlimited Skinner stuff is gonna be a pain in the ass to get. Speaking of unlimited Skinner stuff, I did make that skin yesterday. I don't think that the person that won it has reached out to me on Discord yet. Doesn't really matter because it's still being printed. It'll be another day, but probably hit me up on Discord. Anywho, also if you are a member, i.e., you're either a patron or you're a member on YouTube, make sure you're in the supporters channel. I want to start. I need to start talking to you guys more about getting feedback about what to do, and I want to do more for my members. I always do. But also, like, one of the things I really want to know, I've been doing different giveaways recently. I've done the Skinner giveaways and I've done the game giveaways. The Skinner giveaways, at least to me, seem to be a lot more popular. Are people interested and compelled in the game giveaways? I've been thinking about doing the game giveaways in the supporters channel. So let me know if that's interesting to you guys, because you guys, people seem very interested in the custom skins, and I really love doing those. So I want to focus on that as being my giveaway, but I also want to, like Morcar's so kind to provide us these free game codes that he gets, and so I'm just trying to figure out the best way to support you guys, my community, with the resources that I have. But I think that for now, that's all I'm going to be able to say for today. I have been Ashrothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about since 2012, and I'm here to put even into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope I didn't miss anything. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, head onto the Discord, all that sort of stuff. Consider buying some merch or becoming a supporter in some other way. It really is very, very useful. But also just share this around. Get it out there. Get the show out there. Get the information out there. That is the most important thing that you guys can do to help out the show, to help out me, help out EVE Online. I love you all. Extra special thanks, all my top tier supporters. I mentioned them earlier, but let's do it again. 745 MPSI, Arydanika the Queen, Bad Boy Smooth, Ebo Elite, Erladis, Elange, Flash Gordon, Grims, May, Malak Starfire, Malin, Mercuton, Mayak, Morcar, Michael, Neelam, LM1, Sheesh, Susuro Threns, and Rid. Thank you all so much. When is part 2 of the lore? I can't necessarily promise that right now, because I kind of want to edit the other video first. But I'll put it this way. If it's this time next week and I haven't done the second part of the lore, feel free to be very on my ass about it, because I want to do it no later than next week. Like I'm not dallying with it. So it probably won't be tomorrow, but it should be next week. I've been Ashrothi, the voice of New Eden. Until next time, I'll see you in space. Help you here? No. Have a good one. Hold on. I know everybody's leaving, but one last thing, and this is fine. It's fine that everybody's leaving because this is only for the hardcore to hardcore. If you want Power World 1.0 is coming out next month. We are setting up a dedicated server. So if you're interested in playing Power World with us, let me know in the Discord. Bye. Also, if you play Raid Shadow Legends, I need you in my team.